That documentary.
Hey, you.
Alrighty. Callie's going crazy. Where's my headphones? Welcome to the Damaged Goods podcast. You are in the Neon Pineapple studio with Jess Robert. And joining me as always is critically acclaimed recording artist Ill Vibe.
I always say wow in every intro, but for a different reason.
Critically acclaimed.
Sometimes I'm excited about what you say about me. This time I was excited that you brought up our pineapple.
Yeah.
That was the first thing we had in our studio.
I know, it's exciting. It kind of built the whole theme of the studio.
It sat on a windowsill for a long time. It had not yet found its destiny. And then at a certain point, it crossed paths with our podcast studio and it all came together.
It's kind of our mascot.
Yeah, for a little while we had really talked about calling it the Neon Pineapple Studio, and I think we still will. There's still something there.
I tried to sneak it in there.
I love it. No, I was more trying to go on that because I think it's such a funny little thing. And whenever I walk in here and I see it, I'm always like, yeah. And when we get excited, you're always like, fix the Neon Pineapple. And it's like this little, right, it's a little mascot of ours. So if you haven't noticed it when you're watching, it means a lot to us, so comment on our Neon Pineapple.
And if you're listening, then picture a neon pineapple.
and then now you know that there is one.
So your album, Antigravity, just came out on Friday?
No album comes out on Thursday, FYI.
Is that a thing? I don't know.
Yeah, no, it is. Albums come out on Friday. They used to come out on Tuesdays. Now they come out on Fridays.
Like that's everywhere?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because, okay, I'm saying everywhere. Somewhere is a label going, oh, not us. Not us here at Swedish Mafia Records. No, it's definitely somebody breaks that rule. I'm sure that there is releases that come out on other days, but label releases come out on Fridays and Spotify new music playlists are made on Fridays. And so I think these days, most releases have been pushed to Friday.
Cool. And where can people find the new album if they want to listen to it?
My new album, Antigravity, featuring some amazing talents, friends of the podcast, all our peoples, is... Sorry, I'm getting a call from family members at the same time. Sorry, my podcast is available... oh, my God. Sorry, I got a call from my sister, and it threw me off right there in the moment.
Okay.
No, we're good. So the album, Antigravity, is available everywhere. Wherever you already listen to music, if you're an iTunes guy, an Apple Music guy, and you've got an iPhone since the beginning, it's right now waiting for you on iTunes / Apple Music. I don't know what they call it anymore. It's both. It's one thing, but it has two names.
Yes.
For the rest of us, Spotify, go listen to it. And if you're one of the serial killers who uses Tidal, you're one of the last people who likes Jay-Z so much you use Tidal. Shout out to Tay. Tay uses Tidal.
Nice.
Tidal. It's there too. And it's also in all the other weird places. Amazon Music, which I heard they're closing. Yeah, and Google Play, which I heard they're maybe closing.
I was using Google Play up until pretty recently. The ads are, if you don't pay for it though, the ads are fierce on
Was
there.
it Google Play that bought up Songza that we used to listen to all the time?
Yes, exactly, which is why I was using it.
Yeah.
Because I was using Songza and then it just kind of transitioned into Google Play. And I was kind of used to it.
Hostile Takeover.
Yeah. I liked some of the playlists though. I wasn't ready to give up those specific playlists. But now I'm on the Spotify train.
Speaking of playlists, one of the best things you can do if you're listening to my album on Spotify, or probably this is true for Apple Music too, but Apple doesn't give you any information because they're motherfuckers over there. But if you put my songs on the playlist, if you make a cool summer playlist or a road trip playlist, it's probably the best signal you can send to the algorithm guys over at and girls and other things.
Algorithm women.
The algorithm women. That there's something happening over here. Honestly, even if all you do is go bump one of the songs and just kind of let us know what you think of it, that's cool too. I want to send a shout out to everybody who came out to the album release party in Toronto.
It was so much fun.
People watching the video, you can see I've got this cool drum. What's this called? Like a drum plate?
Like a drum cover. It's like essentially a big thing that goes over the bass drum, right?
Yeah, so it's like when you see like the design on the front of the bass drum. And so the guys in my band gave me a gift. It's the bass drum with my album cover on it. They all signed it. It says April 20th, 2018, which is officially the first night I ever played with the band. It was awesome. So this is fun. I haven't really asked you many questions because I came off of that show so excited and I was on a high and all my industry people came out and all my friends came out and all my fans came out. And I've been building the band up for so long and this transition and what it meant and how it sounds. I would love even just like a quick little, like, what did you think? Hearing some of the songs you already know, hearing them played by a band, and I'm sure you're not going to say that it sucked, but I'm curious what your takeaway was from seeing me finally with a band, hearing the songs that you love played by a band. What did you think?
It was awesome. It definitely changes the feel of every song, I would say, because Meyer produced a lot of the songs on the album, and he works mostly electronically, and then he also does keyboard. He plays piano, right?
Yeah. And he works with musicians too, but not on this.
Yeah, but there's not live drums on your like recorded on your songs and live guitar. Well, there's some live guitar on the album.
Yep.
Anyways, I think my point is that it does. There's a lot of different sounds coming out of it, so it does sound like way more like rocky and less. You know what I mean? Less
absolutely.
Which is obviously a given that it would. But yeah, it sounded really awesome. It sounded really awesome. And yeah, I love some of the stuff you guys did with like the starting and stopping, where like the fun, song wouldn't normally have that, but you kind of drop the music and then you say your little bit, and yeah, it was good.
That's cool. Well, something, because I've never had a band before. I jammed with a few over the years, but this is the first time we've been able to like choreograph things and plan things. And there was a couple moments in the set, like during Weirdo, where the drummer Adam is like, there's a big moment where it's like bum 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 bum, and in the song it just goes bum 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 bum. Always been a weirdo, and he thought it'd be really fun if we just go bum 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 and hold. And then he even said like, we'll decide night of how long the hold is.
Yeah.
So I was like, how do I know when to go back in? And so that's the fun part. Once you start playing with the band, I realized that he can hold as long as he wants. He can hold for 1 second or 30, as long as I wait for the ba-bum. Always been, and then I'm ready.
Because you're always been is the part that comes first, and that cues the band.
Yeah. And so it was just really cool to like get to that place with musicians and find those little opportunities and pockets in the song to come up with cool things like that. We did a cool breakdown during Last Night Was a Movie. The way we started Woklahoma is really cool.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to see where that goes. And for people who see me in other places where the band won't be joining me, it even makes me sharper. Like I was practicing over like the tracks here at the house, and I'm vocally more on than I've ever been, just from being in a room and being accountable to 4 other musicians and running through it over and over and over. You said it before the show. You were like, you practice for this way more than usual.
Yeah. And I think that timing and stuff is key, especially when you're working with a lot of people, and like, finding out those like little things that you can add in that'll really, even like physically, like whether you're punching the air or whatever it is.
Knowing the right time to kick the air so that it works with the band is everything, because otherwise you look like a crazy person.
Totally.
But and I was really starting to feel myself after a couple of practices, and I know exactly when to jump so I can land when they come in and things like that.
Yeah.
Having the time of my life. And it is a good move business wise, and it's great for my brand, but even above those things, it was so fun. The process of getting ready with those guys and then having the big night, and they all came down into the city. Ricky, the bass player, lives down here, but the rest of the guys kind of live around the city. I don't know. It felt like it was. I have these great new friends, and we did all this practicing. We put it together, and then we like debuted it. And my shows don't usually feel that way. My shows are usually like, here's another show. Yeah. Here's another show. But it really felt like we had a presentation, like something we wanted to show everybody. Yeah. And it was really special.
And so this is your first time playing with a band that's your band and you rehearsed with, but you played with a band in Europe before, right?
That's right. Over the years, I've played with all kinds of bands, like in jam session scenarios. Yeah. But when I was touring Europe last summer, a friend of ours had put me on to the opportunity to playing a gig in Berlin. Yeah. And he said that the way it works there is there's already a house band, and they learn like a handful of your biggest hits, and they basically play as your band for one night only. And
how long does it take them to learn that?
That's what's amazing is they do one of these once a month. So in a couple of weeks, they learn 4 brand new songs they've never heard, and then they do this every week, but I think they have a touring artist come through once a month.
Yeah.
But in saying that, they're playing other songs every week. Mm-hmm. And so they're just learning your songs for a one night only. And they had Ghostface Killah and Raekwon from Wu-Tang had come through and done this gig before.
That's really cool.
And Fresh Kills is the guy who told me about it. And he was like, a lot of his homies from that camp of hip hop had gone through and done similar gigs. Jans or Jans, I always forget how to pronounce it until I'm over there, is the guy who put me on to the gig.
Jans.
Yeah, I know, but for years, for months.
Hans? No?
Yeah, but you're starting to see my problem here. Is the ignorance is I just don't know exactly how to pronounce it. How hard or soft is that J? But anyways, it was the time of my life. And I remember I wrote on Facebook, I got to get a band together when I get home. And I remember I messaged you saying, babe, I need a band. And my friend Fat Philly, who's like the king of Croatia, was like, you need a band. And so it was just like, all these people I respect are in agreement. This is a great idea. And then a guy named Dan Stab sent me a message saying, I'm between bands right now, so I'm ready when you are. But I thought, like, I don't know how good Dan is on guitar. I mean, he seems like he'd be good. He seems like a good dude. But maybe this Keener who's sending me a Facebook message is the worst guitarist in the world. It turns out that is not the case. It turns out he's an amazing guitarist, and he knew other amazing musicians. And I have never used the word blessed more in my life than I have in the last month, because that random Facebook post, I have an actual band that looks like I spent a long time trying to put together. And I didn't. And it really kind of came together naturally. And the guys, and they all get the opportunity. None of them have ever played in a hip hop band before, so they're all keen to kind of try new sounds, new styles, and it's not like I put everybody on salary. I got friends who are musicians. Sorry, my friend who's a guitarist for what's her name? The girl who went on to marry Yellow Wolf.
Oh my gosh.
What's her name?
Ghost. I know songs that she sings and I can't think of her name.
Like pop star with a rock edge.
Fifi Dobson.
Fifi Dobson. I knew a guy who was in her band, and she put him on like a 6-figure salary because he was available 7 days a week to tour with her. And it's not like I went out and hired a band properly like Fifi Dobson did. Dan was putting out the feelers in the musician community. So I'm really excited. We're already planning next gigs. I want to make an announcement about a gig for people who listen to the podcast, because it's a big one for me. The band will not be joining me, and it's the Czech Republic. This August, I got booked along with my mentor, Dio Gibson, to go play a festival called Hip Hop Camp in Prague. In Prague, Czech Republic. Hip Hop Camp. What's really cool about Hip Hop Camp, takes it on joint, is on my first European tour with LS, when I was like much younger and more naive guy. We went to Europe and we met a bunch of people. We toured around, played small gigs, made friends, drank booze. And people told us about Hip Hop Camp. They were like, if you really trying to make it, you want to get onto Hip Hop Camp.
They sound very wise.
Yeah, the wise European people. And for some reason they had like an American accent. But the point was that they had like dangled it like this impossible thing. Like if you're really making a push, what you want to do is get on Hip Hop Camp. Because what Hip Hop Camp is it's a big festival, but centered on buzzing up and coming rappers. And let's not forget, they also are great at paying dues to some icons as well. They brought out the Method Mans and the Red Mans and the Pharaoh Monches over the years as well. But what they're really known for is festival lineup, festival experience. But this year, it's a guy named Joyner Lucas, who had that racism music video. Do you remember the one where it was like a black guy, but it was a white actor rapping his lyrics and stuff?
Oh, yeah.
And it did like a million views.
Yeah.
Joyner Lucas is crushing the internet right now. Yeah. And so Joyner Lucas is on it. Suicide Boys, Hilltop Hoods, which are like the biggest rap group out of Australia right now. And so, a couple years ago when I opened for Chris Brown and Kehlani and those guys and Wiz Khalifa in Croatia, of course, those are way bigger artists. Those are probably 500 times bigger artists. But because they're 500 times bigger artists, the audience is just simply not there for me. And so we had a really great time, met a lot of fans, we're taking pictures in the crowd, but you can feel that they're all looking around like, where's Chris Brown?
Yeah.
Is he here? Is he coming? Are we going to get a spot? And what I'm excited about Hip Hop Camp is I think this will be my first time playing a festival where the difference between me and the biggest act on the festival is not 1,000 times more famous.
Yeah, because everybody's there for hip hop. And
the way the Hilltop Hoods are buzzing out of Australia, me and Dio are the only acts booked from Canada. And so that's a real opportunity to create real fans around the world. People fly to Prague, to Prague, to see this festival, to see their favorite up-and-coming like people that they saw on the internet that are buzzing and blowing up. And me and Dio, who are, not killing it at the level of Joyner Lucas, but enough to get on a gig like that. This is where you make a lot of progress in a short amount of time. You know what I mean?
Progress.
Wow. I want a high five on progress. If that's spelt cool, I might work that into the title later. So. Anyways, that's my little. I just wanted to talk for a second about what's coming up for Ill Vibe. The reason I wanted to talk about it, I'm really excited, Jess. I don't know if you've noticed the same thing I've noticed when it comes to Damaged Goods podcast. More and more, I'm out somewhere and someone says to me, I've listened to all the episodes.
Yeah.
And that is really cool because I did anticipate people would listen. Like, we have cool people around us and they're all on the internet and they listen to podcasts. And I figure some people will tune in. But the caliber of person and people that have been saying to me, like, I listened to all the episodes, I'm like, wow, I bet you listen to cool shit. And you've heard all of our podcasts. And so more and more, I'm going to have to promote the music on here.
And we're definitely we're definitely those douches out in public who are like, we talked about on our podcast the other night, and then we'll talk about.
I'm not good at that though. I can't say something if we talked about on our podcast. I have to say that. Mm-hmm. Like, me and Jessica said this on our podcast.
But what I was going to say is that often we'll have people say like, oh yeah, I know, I heard you guys talk about it. And it's like, oh.
Oh, was it funny? Was our perspective poignant and unique?
Poignant. Speaking of which, whenever I listen to Reply All, I feel like, what are we doing? There should almost be like a subgenre of podcast. Well, yeah. So what would our podcast be considered?
You know what? There is subgenres. The problem is I don't know what we are.
Yeah.
Because, and even when we're posting them, in the beginning, I was really hesitant to list them as comedy podcasts, only because we're huge fans of comedy. And I listen to comedy podcasts that are comedy centric, and that's not what we do. I do now add the comedy tag to our podcast because we do try to be funny and have fun with it. But I don't know.
I think that the ones that we watch, other than the fact that, you know what I mean, like there's obviously like comedians running them and stuff like that, I think that the content is pretty similar. We'll talk about like cool things we heard about and give a funny spin on it and stuff like that. I think we can confidently put ourselves in that category.
No, you're right. But I would guess our spin is less funny than a professional comedian.
Of course, yeah, of course.
So I believe I post it right now in the comedy / like society.
Yeah.
Like,
but for example, YouTubers who have no interest in going into professional comedy would still list their YouTube channel maybe under comedy if they're like funny. They're doing weird funny vines where they, you know what I mean? And that's not us. But I'm just saying that like, you know, like that still goes under the comedy umbrella. So I think we can do that.
That's why I've started adding the tag.
But if you weren't sure what I meant when I said Reply All, it's just an amazing podcast. That's more of a documentary, an audio of a documentary, which is not what we do at all.
No.
But speaking of documentaries, how about that documentary we've been watching?
Yeah, so I was wondering if we were going to bring that up because it's really important that if you watch it, you get the information in the same order we got it in.
So we don't want to spoil it.
So let's not say too much.
Yeah, no, of course.
But I think we can say, you know, what I heard when that got me into it is we had seen an SNL parody of it, which is important only in that it told me that people are watching this documentary.
I think that's happened to us more than once where like SNL does a parody of something and we're like, we don't understand this parody.
That must be culturally significant and we don't get the reference.
Exactly. We should probably watch that.
And then somebody on my Facebook just said fucking insane. And I was like, okay, that's enough for me to check it out.
And it is.
It's crazy.
It's fucking insane. We're actually not done it yet, so we can't even spoil the ending anyways. But can we give a synopsis without spoiling too much? Let me try.
But if you give a synopsis, make it what you would learn in the first 5 minutes of the episode.
Yes.
One.
So essentially, there's a religious type leader in India. And should I say no more than that? And people are joining the group, and then you learn way more about it. Yeah. That's all I can say. But the one thing that I will say that has nothing to do with any spoilers or anything is that it's so cool how documentaries really do like feed you that little piece of information because you know that the most interesting. So let's say it's a murder documentary about some murder, and then you find out evidence that he ended up having sex with the other suspect or whatever. It's like that might be the first thing that somebody you're interviewing says to you, like, "Oh, I heard he had sex with so and so," but it's like that the director is like, save that till like 3 episodes into this docuseries. You know what I mean? Like they'll really save that information to give it like a twist later on. And I think that's really cool.
I really like to think about how these things are made. When you and I talk about this in real life, I always reply with, you know how they did that? Yeah. And I think the way to do that is you create like a release schedule for the facts.
Totally.
Which facts do you release in which order?
Totally.
Like you just make a list. Episode 1, these are the 10 facts we're going to give them.
And I also think you organize your files like really well.
Oh, for sure.
Like,
is that a fly or an ash?
It's an ash. I know. I was looking. If you noticed our eyes cross a second ago, there's like an ash like floating in between us. But anyways, yeah, definitely organizing their files really well. Like imagine like every conversation they have with somebody, they really have to write notes on what was covered in that interview and all that. Yeah. It's really impressive, and I'd like to do it someday.
Yeah, we both of us have flirted with that. I remember I told you, and I think I might have mentioned, so I won't get into it on the podcast. I've mentioned it already. That one of my mushroom trips, my vision that I got from the mushroom gods was that if I want to share my ideas with the world, that maybe music wasn't the easiest way to share ideas, that maybe I should make a movie, in particular a documentary. That's really, if you really want to get an idea into a million people's minds, documentary is one of the best ways to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
So that was the first time I ever thought about it. And then now in our relationship, for various reasons, we've had so many discussions about, should you make like a docu thing over like a long time, something you work on? We've spoken, especially after that feminist march, I feel like both of us really saw the power of like, hitting the streets with a camera.
And I'm sure we've talked about this on here before too, but we kind of dabbled in a docu-series when I made the tour documentary of you. So then that's an ongoing thing that we do. So every tour trip that I go on with Anthony, we've been to Europe, we've been to California, across Canada, all those things. We always bring the camera and shoot a little tour documentary.
Yeah.
Now
it's more vlogging.
It's more like
but it's a really well-made
it's
vlog.
in-depth vlogging. Yeah, because it's got like an intro and credits and like it's like a more
but people who watch
episodic.
like Casey Neistat, you know who Casey Neistat is?
I don't know.
Casey Neistat basically does tour love for a living. He travels the world making vlogs at a very professional level, and that's all he does.
Yeah.
He does it so well that now Nike pays him to make like vlog style commercials.
Right.
Because he's that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's made millions off
So
of
you're saying I could try and get that Nike money?
No, I was just saying when you're like, oh, it's really in-depth vlogging, I'm like, oh, I don't think you realize how in-depth vlogging already goes at the top.
You're right.
You know what I mean?
You're right.
Like those top guys make like crazy vlogs weekly. It's like tour love all the time. You know what I mean?
What would you what kind of documentary do you think you'd want to make about what?
Well, I'll tell you what.
This is like hypothetical.
Yeah,
like
I don't
in
know.
the future.
I'm not sure, but a more gut instinct reaction, because we're talking about Casey Neistat, is I really like the idea, and maybe when we can afford to, we could do this at a small scale and then build it from there. Mm-hmm. I like the idea of Gary Vee-ing it up a little bit and making content that follows me for key parts of my life while I talk about things that come up in like an engaging way. Because when we tour, I'm constantly like, oh, you know what's fucking awesome about this? Mm-hmm. But the reality is you don't have your camera out all the time because you're also my beautiful fiance and I want you to experience the place as well. Yeah. You're not my working camera girl 24/7. Yeah. And so somebody with the camera out, I think they would really capture my ideas as they come up, as we're doing the things. When I'm going into Haley Alsacer and I'm trying things out, and then I leave and I'm talking about why this is propelling my brand and how, and I'm so, it's just like, I think that it would be really fun to capture that in an ongoing, real, authentic way, because you know that wouldn't be fake. That's already what I'm like. I'm just talking to you and you're over it. But if there was a camera, I could like.
I was just about to say that is awesome, and we should do that, and I will 100% do that for you. However,
it can't be you. I don't think.
Definitely, you can't be me.
No, because I mean, it's like hours with a camera in your hand.
Right. But anyways, let me finish my thought. Is that I definitely have like a yearning to do like a very like creative, like completely like a topic that I've never. So it's like me and you work on your creative marketing stuff all the time. Yep. So that's not a topic that I would need to like delve into. I'm living it. I'm living that topic.
I don't think you're involved with that one. Yeah. But I agree with you. I'd like to make a real doc too. I just don't have a good answer for that right now.
Yeah.
I used to think that, you know that preacher in Dundas Square?
Yeah.
I used to think if I had a little bit of money.
I think there is there not?
I don't think so, but you just give him a little paper and you're like, I just want to follow you around and capture, man.
Yeah.
Because I think he would the things that happen to him and around him, I bet are really interesting.
Did you ever watch the Szanto documentary?
No, but I bet you I subconsciously stole that idea for this one. Okay.
So if anybody is listening, especially if you're not from Toronto, Szanto was essentially, I want to not say anything too offensive here. He was a man who probably had some mental health issues, who dressed up kind of like a sexy Santa Claus. Like he would have muscles. A muscular Santa Claus. So he'd usually have no shirt on and maybe like red pants and a Santa hat on.
And suspenders or no?
I think sometimes.
I'm picturing suspenders, but I might be adding those.
He's been MIA for a minute.
He has been.
Which is probably good, to be honest. He needs to, work on himself before he works on the Szanto character more. But essentially he was like a Toronto like mascot for a while. Like basically he would go on the subway and do like push-ups, and his quote was always yes, yes, yes. Do you remember this?
No, I know of Szanto. I don't think I had a Szanto experience.
He'd be like, Szanto, yes, yes, yes. It was always like, yes, yes, yes. He would say it like over and over again. And there was billboards. People put up billboards in Toronto of him like flexing his muscles that said like Szanto 2009, yes, 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 or whatever. And somebody made a documentary on him, and it's super interesting and a little bit sad too. But yeah, I definitely would love to do something like that.
Yeah, I have interest in that type of thing. Now, what I don't have interest in doing is what sometimes you'll see like a documentary pop up and it's like directed by some awesome actor or somebody where they took like a really difficult intellectual subject and like they go cover it. It's like this thing that happened, this lawsuit that happened in Maryland.
Right.
Like, I no interest.
Yeah.
But if it was like following this interesting person around, this washed up actor who's turned into this thing, and he's actually in this really interesting place in his life, and you're like, wow, that'd be really interesting to show that.
Yeah.
And how celebrity can sometimes like that I'm into for sure.
I really have no interest because of my anxiety of doing anything where like I feel like it could be kind of dangerous. Do you know what I mean? Like I would never want to like cover a murder where it's like the guy got off but he shouldn't have got off. You know what I mean?
Like you're like at a hotel like getting fingerprints.
And I'm trying to like figure out like talk to his lawyer, talk to the other lawyer, figure out why he got off, and like blah blah blah. Try to bring it to light. That sounds dangerous to me, and like I really respect the people who do it because
it is dangerous.
Yeah, but I could never do that. I would literally lose sleep thinking that like this guy is going to send people to come kill me and stop
really
making
funny
this
about
documentary.
That? I think a lot of people, they watch those TV shows and they read those books and documentaries and stuff, and they think like, go in there, like ask him.
Yeah,
that person is way too terrified to ever do that thing.
Yeah. Even on Reply, sorry not to bring up Reply All again, but even on Reply All where they're just researching like, you know, telemarketers and things like that, it gets a little bit scary because when it comes to they're trying to like bust a scam, like some weird scam some person's running and they're trying to get to the bottom of it and figure out what it is. It could get a little dicey, you know what I mean?
You know how I've been getting those scam calls from the CRA?
Oh, of course
so
I do.
I've been getting these scam calls from the Canadian Revenue Agency, and everybody
Quote,
knows
unquote.
that they don't call you like that.
Yeah.
In fact, they do, but only under certain circumstances, which is interesting because the last time I got my CRA scam call, probably the 10th or 20th time I've now gotten this scam call, 5 minutes before that, I got a real call from the CRA, and everyone always says the CRA doesn't call you, but I Googled it, not 5 minutes before, maybe a half hour. I Googled it before. I Googled it between the two calls, and I find a website that says, yes, that sounds scammy because the CRA mostly doesn't call you, but they do under certain circumstances, like if you register a new business. And so,
which we
just recently did. And so I got a real legit call from them, hung up the phone, and then a half hour later, I get a scam call from them, and I know the difference. You can hear it. It's like echoey, and they're asking the other questions. And so lately, I've been like messing with them. So I sang them like the Biz Markie song, "Ooh baby you." It's like you were in bed, I'm in the living room singing, "You got what I need." And the guy on the other line, I was just like, "Keep singing." He was loving it. And
well, of course, because his job is the worst.
Yeah, and then after I was just like, man, why are you scamming people? And honestly, very much like the Reply All episode of which you speak.
Yeah.
He was just like, man, I don't make the rules. This is just my job, I guess.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
that's it. And if we were
not a cool
if
job
we
to
were
have.
like the Reply All guys, we would do a deep dive into that. But
this is what I was gonna say that confirms what you were just saying. When I asked him, like, man, why are you trying to scam people for money? My heart started racing.
Yeah.
Because I was breaking the third wall. I'm acting like Matt Bourne, or James Bourne, or what's fucking Bourne's first name?
Whatever, Bourne.
Michael Bourne?
Yeah, sure.
What's his fucking name?
I don't
Jake
know.
Bourne?
I haven't seen those movies in forever.
Sam?
It's not Sam.
Is it Archibald? Is it Archibald Bourne? Alfonso? Okay, I'm Alfonso Bourne on the phone with this guy. And
I think it's Gus.
Gus Bourne, yeah. And I was just like, my heart started racing, and you realize when it's like one of those scenes where they're in a hotel and they go, they're coming, and he hides behind the door and like grabs something and like hits the dude. No fucking way. I mean, maybe I would try my best, but my heart's racing just asking the guy, like just telling him.
Wait, what scenario are you describing where someone's hiding behind a door?
I'm just making a joke that in every action movie, there's always like a scene where they're coming, and then they have like 1 second to defend their hotel room or their car or whatever.
So you're worried that's going to happen with the guy who scam
No, what I'm
called
saying
you?
is my heart started racing on something as basic as saying, I know you're not who you say you are.
Yeah. Because it's like, it's conflict, right? It's confrontation.
And then you realize, and then I watch movies and I'm like, pussy, about shit that I would
that you would never do. Yeah,
that's
for sure.
That's the connection I was making. I jumped there. I skipped all the explanation.
I was like a retail manager for years and years. And you'd think that being said, and also in like a very like return heavy, like conflict heavy, everything okay?
Yeah, it's good. You're just looking.
Okay. Yep. Environment where, you know, there'd be lots of people trying to return like used cosmetics and like things like that.
Yeah.
And you'd think that it would make me used to conflict. But no, like even like, you know, 7 years into it, whenever I had to tell a customer like, no, or like, you obviously used this or whatever, whenever I had to like confront them on something, like not really exactly like what you do because they're not necessarily, no, they are trying to scam. Like if they're trying to return a half-used lipstick, even though I know they're wrong, they're in the wrong, I have every right to call them out on this thing. I would always be shaking. Like I would, and it would always like take away my power because I'd be like trying to like assert myself and then my hands would be like shaking.
So here's a question. Mm-hmm. You intellectually knew you were literally in the paid position. You were the manager of that department and of the store.
Correct.
You know not only that they're scamming, but this is a regular scam you see. Mm-hmm. And so you're like in the right, like confidently. You're not even just kind of like, maybe this is what it is. Like you see the scam all the time.
Yeah.
What is it that instinctually makes you shake? Because I'm the same way. When I know I'm about to have a conflict, I don't always shake, but it's like my body goes into like a mode,
like almost like
a little fight or flight,
a little bit fight or flight, like numb mode. Yeah,
what is
for
that?
Sure.
Is it just like this instinctual, like?
Yeah, and I think it's that, especially if you know, because if you thought that they were just going to be like, oh, okay, no problem, I tried, then I don't think you would feel that feeling. Yep. But you know that they're about to be like, are you fucking kidding me? Like you're telling me I can't return that? You're preparing for the response. So I think, I think that's what it is.
That's smart. I think that is what that is.
Yeah,
because I get like that a lot, and to be honest, I get like microaggression versions of that throughout my entire life. Mm-hmm. And this is a good thing to talk about. And if you want to go into your therapy thing, this is a great thing to talk about.
I do want to go into my therapy thing.
Okay, so that's good. So let me say this, and then I think you'll feel the bridge. Is in my life, I have tiny versions of that all the time.
Yeah.
Through the lyric video business, it's people, I thought it was much less than that. And and it's like, that's a scam. My friend will do it for much. And it's like, you just have these little like conflicts.
Yeah.
And in hip hop, don't get me started.
Yeah, way more.
On the number of little like people who just assume like, hey man, I'm coming on that tour with you. And you're like, oh, I got to explain to them. That's not how that works.
Yeah.
Why is that on me to explain? And it's like, you get these little like conflicts and like aggressions and honestly, there's been moments in our relationship where I'm like, babe, I'm burned out. I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Like, and I have to because I'm addicted to this hustle and I'm having so much fun and we're going to these cool places.
Yeah.
But definitely that like social media competition of hip hop, client services, living in just Toronto, a big city where you're just going to deal with bullshit.
Yeah.
Like people who call the fucking buzzer and claim the apocalypse is coming.
Yeah.
It's like you get like little micro hostilities and like conflicts, micro conflicts, I'll call them. I'm sure I'm not coining this.
Micro conflict?
It sounds like a thing that like a therapist or like a philosopher,
I think you coined it.
Professor would say.
I think you coined it.
If I coin it, then I'm fucking killing this game. So these little micro conflicts, I really feel them how they add up on me.
Yeah, for sure. We talked about recently when I was talking about, stressful being a retail manager back in the day. And my friend was like, oh, you must love it now because you guys run your own business. And I'm like, actually, it's a little worse, I would say, as far as conflict goes, because when you are a retail manager, especially for a larger company, you can often say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't.
I don't make the rules.
I don't make the rules. I'm sorry, that's against our policy. And you can just kind of like,
the big guy upstairs makes the rules.
Yeah, the retail god makes the rules. But when you run your own business, if there's something you don't want to do for someone, you almost have to say, like, I don't want to, sorry.
Come on, it's just you. You could do it for me.
Yeah, when they want something like an extra thing for free,
come on,
you're just like, I value myself and I have to charge you more for that. Like, and it does create more conflict because the person's like, they know that you're the one making the decision. There's nobody above you who's telling you can't. You are making the decision. So when you say no, people are like, what? You're saying no to me? Like,
I just offered you what I think is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Same thing for photographers, same thing for producers. Everybody I know in a creative service position where it's like kind of vague what they're providing because you're getting pictures. But what are you paying him for? Is it his time? Is it his eye?
Anthony's belching like crazy, by the way.
I'm drinking a lot of Pepsis over here. We had some Vindaloo earlier, so I can't help it. But you know what I mean? Like, what are you paying for? Is it his time? Is it his talent? And I think there are little micro conflicts for every time you have a photographer has to book himself.
Micro conflicts, like, trademark.
It's with the photographers we work with, it's cool.
Yeah.
Because they're also reasonable. Whatever they ask for, we cover, and it's no problem. But I think if you're that guy selling on Facebook or Instagram, where it's just like, hey, I'll give you $50, and you're like, man, I start at $400.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I gotta do this all day?
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'll give you $60.
Yeah.
Man, I said I start at $400.
Yeah.
And I gotta pay my fucking bills in a big city.
For sure.
You know what I mean? I really we're because of the lyric vids business, we have a website with the prices listed, and it's a little better. But back in the day, man, before we met, when I was like a music video hustler, sometimes I get there and the guy's paying me, and then his friend's like, how much does this cost? And he's like, oh, 600, 800. He's like, that's a ripoff. I mean, well, he's paying me. Well, his friend tells him I'm ripping him off. And it was
That's so uncomfortable.
It was so uncomfortable. It's so intense.
Oh, I just had like a brain fart.
It's okay.
Another thing that I find is often we're kind of, is curator the right word?
Yeah.
Where like we'll work with the client, but then we might also need to hire a makeup artist. We might also need to hire a drone person.
Yeah.
And basically the client gives us a budget. And I always try to like not apologize necessarily to the person, but I tell them what the budget is, and I'm like, no disrespect if that's lower. This is kind of the other side of the spectrum where like I'm buying services of somebody else, because I also sell that, a similar service, so I understand that your rate is your rate and whatever. But I'm always just like, no disrespect, but this is the budget we have. Could you work with that? If not, then no worries. You know what I mean? Like, I never want to disrespect you by lowballing you, but that is the budget I have to work with.
Because even in the agency world, when I used to work there, we did that a lot. We were a relatively big agency, but we're out of budget when it comes to hats. You know what I mean? Or whatever.
Yeah, totally.
And so it's like, you do that sometimes. Where you're like,
I know your hats are $2 each, but we only have one to spend.
Exactly. And if you cannot sell it at that price, then I apologize for wasting your time.
Yeah.
And if you can, bingo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think when
with
you approach
artists
it that way,
too, I find that I've never like haggled. It's not about haggling. It's about the budget. It's about the maximum budget that you have. I've never had to haggle. You know what I mean? Like, it's just that really is the budget that we have. We're not lying. That really is all we have to work with. Does that work for you? No, yes.
I tend to overpay on the small side. You know, when a homie's like, hey, I'll come out and I'll help you for 50, I always each answer them 60. There's a selective,
for sure.
In the 50 laws of power, there's a thing called selective generosity. And it's just like, give a little extra when you can, because it goes a long way.
What's the 50 laws of power?
It's just this book about like 50 things you can do to be more successful.
I didn't really know you like subscribe to like.
I don't. But
the secret type of books.
I don't when it's vague and magical.
Yeah.
But the idea of selective generosity, as an example,
is a very applicable.
If I hire somebody for photography and he goes, listen, $50 is fine, and I send him 60, he answers my emails twice as fast in the future, cares more, and goes, oh, this is a customer who's not lowballing me and penny pinching me.
Can I talk a little bit about like motivational speaking and like our thoughts on that?
Yeah, I hope you will, actually.
Okay, cool.
I wish that Jessica would.
So just because that was a great segue for it, we often talk about motivational speakers and how a lot of them, it's a lot of...
Not highly.
Yeah. A lot of them, it's a lot of fluff, and it's a lot of, what do you call it? Whipping? Like whipping people into...
Yeah, they're just like whipping bullshit out of nothing.
Yeah.
Man.
So they'll be like, you have to use your innermost best self to like... strategize the world around you, and it's just like these words that aren't actually really
the world around you is a great example.
that aren't really applicable.
It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, it doesn't really mean anything, and maybe it means something to them, but then they're not describing it properly. You know what I mean? Like,
it's like motivational tongues. It's just like, I'm going to use all the buzzwords in various patterns.
Yeah.
Like a magical spell, and we'll all say those patterns together, and we'll get excited, and that excitement will make a change in our lives.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying means nothing. It's like it's a trail mix of buzzwords.
Yeah.
That's what the fuck it is. It's a trail mix of buzzwords. They're just saying like assets and powerful and your balance of your life, and you will believe in your true self. Like,
keep going. I like it.
What does that even mean? Of course you believe in your true self. I don't know what that even means.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm actually pro people like Gary Vee. I'm pro people who go like,
yeah, but Gary Vee's different.
I got a couple of things you could keep in mind that might make tomorrow easier or make you be able to put in those extra hours. Have you thought of it this way? I'm with it. Let's do it, man. Let's have the talk all day.
Yeah.
But those people, you could feel it when they got that rhythm.
And there's also nothing wrong with speckling in a little bit of that, because Gary Vee also does that. So if anybody doesn't know who Gary Vee is, he's basically a marketing
guru, marketing
guru.
Yeah.
He runs his own advertising company that does really well. So he gives very practical advice and actual literal advice. He'll say, invest in Facebook ads and blah, blah, blah. He'll give like actual practical advice on how to build your business. But what he does do a little bit is, for example, he'll say, you could have been born anything. You could have been born a fish. You could have been born a bus, he said on the one, which is really funny because you can't really be born a bus. But
I was a bus for a while.
But he's basically saying, you're born you, and that's already a miracle.
Yeah.
So take advantage of that and make the most of it. And that is a little bit like whippy, you know what I mean? Like it's a little bit like...
Disagree.
Yeah.
It's more whippy than by Facebook
because
ads.
it's not actual advice. It's more so just getting you excited about and to be content and like, what's it called?
Sometimes just say,
thankful.
Have you looked at things this way? It doesn't have to be advice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, it's true.
I've written some like blog entries on my social media that aren't actual advice. It doesn't say to do anything, but I am framing things in a way that might make you look at things differently and shake yourself out of a rut.
Yeah.
And he does that as well.
Yeah, totally.
And
that's what I'm saying. I think that it's okay when you're mixing it with other like practical advice. I think that when the problem for me is when all's it is that a proper sentence?
When you realize the power in your mind is only limited by the power in your soul.
Yeah.
And in fact, both those powers are owned by you, and you are a single being on a planet that is also owned by you. Like, what does that mean?
That is not even an over-exaggeration. Like, if you guys have heard these motivational speakers, if you haven't, go look up. I think if you Google motivational speaker, it'll even come up.
And I don't want to get into why we have our personal relationships with this, but what I will say is that what you might not realize from sitting at home is, in addition to famous motivational speakers, there are like 8 Mile level Eminem motivational speakers.
Yeah, it's a whole culture
on the come up, and they, like a rapper on the come up, don't have any of the successes of which they speak of.
Yeah,
they're motivating from a place of they're still working on building their business, and they're still working on launching their brand. And I think when you have nothing to say and you've accomplished nothing. I'm not saying you've accomplished, but motivational speaking, even Gary Vee says this, is that, hey, before I had launched a successful ad agency, I wasn't comfortable being a keynote speaker.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Do something and then tell us about how you did it.
Yeah.
Tell us about what you learned and why it was successful. When someone says, here's how to be successful in your life, and if they're unmarried, making less than 6 figures a year, not living all of their dreams, haven't traveled the world, I'm curious why I should trust that they're the person who knows how to live my best life.
Now, if there's somebody out there who's arguing that these motivational speaking, I guess not
open
campaigns,
micers?
what are they? Open micers are all about just kind of like finding happiness or whatever, and that these words will actually help people to find happiness, then sure. But I just feel like sometimes they promote like business success and like life success and like,
they do.
You know what I mean? Like
they do.
And that's to me when it's just like, well, you're not actually giving any real like business advice or success advice.
$75 tickets.
Oh yeah. But
and I'm sorry,
but
$75 tickets means you're suggesting you are gonna change my life.
Yes.
That's what I just see that price tag.
But
and
let's say let's say that it's all just about finding personal happiness and feeling content with yourself and the life that you're currently living type thing. That would be worth $75 maybe to some people. It's just like, you know what, I'm in a real rut. I just want to get a different perspective on my life just feel better about myself.
So if one of these workshops was called group and by the way, this is not the name, this is a really uncatchy name, but like collaborative session, I'm not mad at that.
Yeah.
People could get together.
Collective happiness encouragement session.
People who are in a rut got together and collectively tried to shake themselves out of a rut, I think you and I will be talking about that on our podcast. Like, isn't that inspiring that that's a thing? Mm-hmm. But that's not what these things feel like. That's not what the poster says they are.
Yeah.
They're billed as, I am a wise person. Come hear the wisdom.
Yeah.
And I'm arguing that there is none.
Yeah.
And not like there is some.
Yeah.
The way that anybody who isn't a complete loser in their life, has some wisdom from what they're doing in their lives, and they made some good decisions. And, hey, here's something I learned from my last relationship.
Yeah.
But when you stand in front of an amphitheater and you host a seminar called like Amplify Your Life, it's like, but is your life amplified?
One thing that we disagreed on was that you were kind of okay with what's the really famous one, the big guy who looks like a giant, Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins, yeah.
So you were kind of okay with him. What did you like about him? Because I found him to be just as corny as the rest of them.
Here's the problem. So Tony Robbins' position in society has changed since I said that.
Okay.
Do you know a little bit about Tony?
No, tell me.
So Tony has, and I haven't been paying a lot of attention because you actually opened my eyes a little bit about Tony in this incident. But he did something recently, like questioning the Me Too movement or something in like a not so nice way, and saying that they're all like they all are just blah blah blah.
Right.
So that's not the part I agreed with. Just so people know.
Yes.
What I had seen his Netflix documentary, and what I said is he comes across to me like a people hacker. He's clearly a genius, and his genius lies in knowing people, knowing how the mind works, how they work emotionally, because he was navigating them better than they were navigating themselves in some cases. Now, when I pitched it to you, because I was really impressed by it, and then you were like, okay, sure, I guess, and we watched it, I was less impressed the second time, and you were so skeptical, and I had a new look, and I was just like, I'm less impressed this time.
That's really cool that happened, because that rarely happens with me and you. When we disagree on something, you usually like fight to the death for it, but it's nice that you're like, yeah, you know what, I rewatched it, and I kind of see what you mean.
Yeah.
That actually feels really good.
And then in some other thing, I saw something where they explain, I can't remember if it was just a show or something else, where they explain a little bit about how those like speakers will cheat.
Yeah.
Where they do gather information, and you think, well, they wouldn't just call the guy the day of the show and ask him questions at his home. And then in this other case, it's the British guy that we watched his Netflix special.
Yeah.
So I read a blog about that guy, The Push or whatever.
Yeah. What's his name?
I can't remember, but he has a Netflix special called The Push. He's a British guy. He's a mind magician guy.
Yeah.
And I read a blog about it that says, hey, I worked on one of his shows, and here's some things that I know.
Yeah.
They call these people in advance, and they do questionnaires over the phone.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, definitely, if you had asked me before I read the blog, do they call them and do questionnaires with them in advance? No, because then they would know.
It's funny how it's just like entertainment has no laws.
There are no
because
rules.
if that was in like politics, or if that was in, you know what I mean, whatever, it would be like, oh, you can't do that.
It's gross.
But in entertainment, there's no rules.
It's all
you can do that if you want. You know what I mean?
You realize there's nothing's off limits.
For all you know, me and Anthony are like reading a script, a prompter behind like each other's heads right now, and we're just acting like it's really casual.
I'm not even here.
He's just a hologram.
Do you know what taught me that? When I was young, do you remember the NBC specials? Behind the Magic, and there was like this like faceless magician who would like expose all his competitors' tricks.
Oh, I never watched it, but I do remember it existing.
So he did one where they exposed street magicians, and especially it may as well have said like David Blaine or Chris Angel, right. I think. Oh, it may as well have just said those guys, the ones who do like this tricks out in the street where there's a crowd around them.
Yeah.
And you know what they exposed on that show?
What?
So I'm gonna describe a trick to you. And then I'm going to tell you the fucking shady shit they do. So here's the trick. They're in a crowd full of people all around them in a full circle. The camera shows them in a full circle. And he calls one guy over and he goes, I'm going to fly, and I want you to verify that I'm flying.
Right.
Okay? So he flies like 2 feet off the ground, and the guy freaks out.
Uh-huh.
And of course, people are all around them.
Yeah.
There's a guy next to him verifying it. Amazing trick. Here's what they expose. They go back later and film the flying.
So it's like, they told him to fake a freak out?
No. He does the stupid trick where you like hover on one foot.
Oh, I can do that.
Yeah, but he does it really well and gets the guy to like, and so the guy goes, whoa.
Yeah, because you just lift one foot. Yeah.
So he does it really well because he's a magician. He's not a fucking podcaster. So he does it really well. And the guy reacts. So there's a reaction.
I can do it pretty good, by the way.
But then they go back and they refilm it and add a foot. And you think like,
so-
well, they don't go back and add a foot. And no, they just wait till everyone goes home and then they go back and they shoot it again.
There's there's no laws against what you can film for a magic documentary.
He's not going to jail because he faked the trick. And so
Yeah.
I think you realize that when it comes to those things, it's like nothing's real. And that's why when we watch any reality show, I'm like, bullshit. I'm just walking around the house just like, no, I don't believe any.
One time when I was in grade school, we had a substitute teacher for a day, and he was like a young, cool guy. And he was like, oh, do you guys want to? And I remember we weren't doing like any work, and he was like, do you guys want to see a magic trick? And we're like, sure. We were like grade like 6 or 7. And he did like a card trick, like, is this your card type thing or whatever. And then he did the thing where, to my friend Brittany, I might tag her in this, see if she remembers. He was just like, go and like take off your shoe and like go to the bottom of your shoe essentially. And so she did, and the card that she had chosen was like under her foot, like in her boot. Now, would you argue that they planned that in advance then? Because how the fuck?
I don't know. Well, there's no magic. We know that. So I'm not saying I know how all tricks work.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just saying, like, would you think that any trick like that where something ends up in like a weird place, do you think that has to be planned in advance?
Here's what I know.
How?
They cheat on all of them.
Yeah.
The trick is
That's what a trick
they
is.
have 12 different ways to cheat.
Yeah.
And they're always changing it, so you don't know where to look. In some cases,
Right.
if it's on camera and you go, well, there's people all around them, well, then the cheat is they wait till they go home and shoot more. If they're in an amphitheater, maybe the cheat is trapdoors and shit. I'm just talking like a mass. But I just mean like they know all the cheats, you know none of them. And that's how they do a whole special and they trick you with all of them. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
for sure. I've told you this story a million times, but for the listeners, I once was invited to like a private... not magician. What's the other word? Mentalist. I was once invited to a private mentalist party, and there was, I think, 3 different mentalists there, and there was maybe 15 or 20 people at the party, and it was like a dinner party with like snacks and stuff, and they basically did mentalist tricks for us, and then kind of explained a little bit like about what the industry is and like how they, not exactly necessarily how each trick is done.
Sure.
But
they gave you some information.
They gave us some information. It was really cool. And the one guy did tell us how he did one trick, and what it was that he asked a girl to count from 1 to 10 and look him right in the eyes. And he said, pick a number from 1 to 10, and now count out loud from 1 to 10. And he guessed her number every single time. He said there was slight variations in like her eye movements, in her mouth movements, different things like that told him that when she was getting close to the number, you get like more and more nervous as you're getting close to your number. And that's what he said, is that he was really, really good at reading those small movements, which I believe.
And that's probably what it is. The TV show Lie to Me is really illuminating about like little micro expressions and stuff. And I remember the guy on that show's not a magician. He's like a CSI guy or FBI guy. CIA guy or FBI guy. But you learn a lot about the little microaggressions he sees. Rio's lying. And they just started talking, lying. Well, because nobody does that with their eye unless it's for this reason. And what's cool on that
crazy.
show, and honestly, if you've never seen it, I'd even be willing to rewatch the first season again. There was only 2, I think. Is right when he discovers it. Let's say he's like talking to the guy.
Sorry, is this real or is this a
No, it's a TV show called Lie to Me, and I can't remember the guy's name in it, but he's a really great actor.
An actor? Oh, okay.
It's an actor, and he plays one of these CIA guys who's like can look at your face and read all your muscle movements and know what they mean.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And what's cool is, let's say he's interviewing the wife after they think she might have murdered her husband. He's asking questions. He's asking her questions. He's looking at her in the face. And then what happens is he goes, okay, she's lying. Her eye twitched at this point. And then what they do is the screen goes to half, and then it's like, gush, 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 and they show all these other cases of people who we now know because of history were lying.
Yeah.
And it zooms in on their eye and shows it on every one of them.
Like actual historical figures.
Like Bill Clinton and all these people.
Wow.
And it's just so impressive.
That's
'cause
so
you're like,
cool.
Oh man, that's so real.
Yeah.
So they're giving you real life examples of like, and by the way, it's so small. I watched it and thinking, oh, I'm gonna fuck the world up now. No, it's too small. You can't use this information.
What was the other thing you watched with the girl who was really good at telling whether people were lying or not? It was like a real life thing where there was this girl who was just like a psychologist or whatever who was really good at telling.
I don't remember.
It was basically a business thing. You don't remember this?
Not at all.
I think you even had it on the list of stuff we should talk about on our podcast.
It's not ringing a bell at all. Sorry.
And she was just like really good at reading people in the business situations. You don't remember this? She was a girl. And you showed me like episodes of her talking.
No, it's not ringing a bell.
Okay, sorry guys. That was a dead end.
We'll come back to it.
We'll come back to it.
Why don't you talk about
Your trip to the loony bin.
Oh no, don't call it that.
Hey, well, hey, I'm joking. You called it
I
that.
know. I called it that earlier.
You walked
so
in
he's
the door
allowed.
and you were like, I'm back from the loony bin.
So today I went to my first therapy session.
Court appointed?
No, not court appointed.
I'm joking.
My first therapy session in years. I went when I was like 13 or 14 years old, a long time ago. Wasn't very helpful, to be honest. But I went. I went today. It was good. It was really funny because she was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna ask you like just some like starting questions so I can get like build a file on you." She's like, "We don't have to delve into anything too deep or whatever." I was like crying like during the session. She was essentially like, "We don't have to get too crazy into it," and I'm like dumping all this stuff on her. It's hard to like half get into your issues. You know what I
bet
mean?
she appreciates it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, she wrote a lot of fucking notes. So
She's like writing as fast as she can.
there's just like paper flying everywhere. No, yeah, I'm gonna go back in a few weeks, and she gave me some homework to do, which was really cool.
Good.
Yeah, so basically one thing that I learned from the homework that she gave me, it was basically like a questionnaire on just like almost like a little bit, a lot, very much, whatever, like you answer the question in that way, or extremely, whatever. One thing that I learned is I always thought that agoraphobia was the fear of leaving the house. Have you ever heard that word before?
Yeah, and that's what I think the people generally think it means.
Yeah. So agoraphobia is actually a type of anxiety disorder in which you fear and avoid places or situations that might cause you to panic and make you feel trapped, helpless, or embarrassed.
So some people that's everywhere, but some people that's only specific spots.
Yeah. So some people, because of it, stay home a lot.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily what agoraphobia means. So me and her talked a little bit about that, and that so basically I always thought that I had the opposite of agoraphobia because I hate being alone. I really don't like being alone, whether it's alone at home, alone somewhere else. Like I don't enjoy like people who go on vacations by themselves. I'm like super envious of that.
I could do that.
I would never do that in a million years. I would be depressed the entire time.
I've done that while we've been together. I spent like a week alone in Spain.
Yeah, you were alone in Barcelona for all that time.
Amazing.
Yeah, no, I could never do that. I would literally be crying every day, I think. I think I would be like, everything I see that would be awesome would be tainted by the fact that almost like I would feel like no one will believe this was so cool, and like I'll never be able to properly describe how cool this was.
You don't need to.
No, I know, but that's just how I am. I understand that, and I really envy people who can do that and enjoy the moment to themselves.
And don't get me wrong,
but
I definitely feel the pull of the internet when I'm by myself. I'm taking pictures. I want to document it to show other people.
And me, it's not so much documentation; it's more so having someone to share it with.
Yeah.
And in the same way, not to get too crazy deep and scary in this episode.
30 seconds from now, you're crying.
Yeah. In the same way, I feel that way about scary things as well. Like I would never watch a horror movie alone, which I know a lot of people wouldn't, but because I would want to feel that fear with someone else. I would never do something scary alone. You know what I mean? I think one of my worst phobias is that like I might like see something, like see an alien fly by or something and no one else sees it. And then I just think I'm fucking crazy forever. You know what I mean? Like I always want to experience things with other people so that I have like a common, you know what I mean? Like a common thing to feel and talk about, you know?
I'm clearly not your therapist, but I would think that's like expressive of your codependence.
Yes, 100%. That's what it is. Yeah, for sure. I also read a little bit about, in her question that she gave me, there was stuff about obsession compulsion, which I don't have, but I didn't realize that obsession compulsion is kind of two different things. There's the obsession and there's the compulsion. And I think I do have, so compulsion is more like washing your hands a million times, which I do not have. Sure. I'm actually really messy and not OCD like that at all. I don't have things that I need to keep clean or press a button over and over again or anything like that. But one of the things with obsession is unrealistic ideas that go through your head over and over again.
Yep.
And I 100% have that.
Yeah,
like
you've talked about that before.
Yeah. I'll get like sometimes like violent things that'll like repeat in my head over and over again, or I'll get at night I'll get like scary things. Like even if I haven't watched a scary movie, I'll just get like home intruder thought that like comes into my head over and over again, and I can't fall asleep because I'm thinking, oh, this person's gonna break in and they're gonna run in just like this. Like it's almost like, to be honest, that scene from Get Out where like the guy's like running. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like the scene that everybody makes fun of. That's kind of like an expression of my anxiety. Like when I saw that scene, I was just like, oh, that's kind of how I feel all the time. Is just like somebody's about to like run out of the darkness and it's gonna freak me out. That's kind of like, if I could describe my anxiety, that's kind of how I would describe it.
I think that's what he was going for.
Yeah, no, I think you're probably right. Good job.
Jordan Peele with the win.
Yeah, wow.
That's interesting. I have such a different relationship with all those emotions.
Yeah, I know.
Like, I'm an imperfect, broken person myself, but I don't feel those same anxieties and fears in the same ways that you do.
Yeah.
I'm quite comfortable alone. I was a lone wolf as a kid, so I'm used to that. There's a lot of time in my life because I'm always off the beaten path. I'm accidentally alone a lot. Like Monday mornings, people are busy. I'm not. So before I met you, there's just moments in my life where, as somebody who hadn't had a day job in a while, or in other examples like that, I just found myself alone.
Do you think if Facebook and social media didn't exist, you'd be as comfortable being alone as well?
Well,
because you do, even when I'm not with you, you're perfectly comfortable being alone at home or wherever else you are, but you're also constantly posting on the internet. If anybody follows Ill Vibe on Facebook, you'll know that he posts more than anybody you know.
Yeah, probably. But I post whether I'm with people or alone.
Yeah.
I only post more alone because I try to be polite to people and not post while I'm talking.
while you're, while you're being social. Yeah.
But my comfort with being alone started way before Facebook or the internet existed, or this idea of constantly documenting and broadcasting. I moved out on my own at 16 years old. And I not my own. I lived with a friend and her family. But
I'm going to stop you real quick.
Yeah.
I'm getting a alert that says your disc is almost full. Does that have anything to do with our recording, does it?
No. That's Dropbox from the files that we were sent earlier by our homie, Patrick.
I apologize for interrupting.
No problem. So I moved in with my friend's family and was pretty independent.
Yeah.
And I remember I used to go see the movies by myself. I'd walk down by the beach, hang out, do my own thing, and it was just like nice to have some peace and quiet after coming out of like a house where there was like a lot of like volume and drama going on just before that, because I was just in the midst of moving out as a teenager, right? So I just, in that moment, I was like, by necessity, like there's some cool things now that I live on my own. I can do what I want. Some of those things are gonna have to be by myself. My other friends have to go home.
Right.
My other friends, you know what I mean? Like have curfews, and my other friends can't go to the movies 3 times a week. Their parents don't want them to, or whatever. I'm 16 years old, right? And so I think early on I was like, oh, well, I'll just do the coolest shit that I could think of. And whenever people can come, I'm down. And if they can't come, I'm sort of still down. You know what I mean? And I think that's just now. I'm of course I'm in a happy relationship with you, and I've got some really great people around me. So I always try to send like, hey, who wants to come out tonight?
And I think you still lean towards you'd rather be social than alone.
Oh yeah, I'm not. I prefer to be around people. My favorite times are around people. All our camping times, and even playing like pickup games of basketball with some other of the rappers. Like those are my favorite memories. I cut my teeth on. I can't trust nobody. I'm by myself. And so when I have to be there, or even if it's like you're going out one night, I'm like, oh shit, house to myself? I can make some music. I can I get kind of excited on some like Home Alone thing. It's like all the time, even as a grown ass man.
So being alone is not one of your things.
No.
Do you have any specific phobias that you think are worth mentioning?
I don't know, man.
I almost feel like your food thing is borderline phobia.
Yeah,
because for example, I'll tell a story, and we'll see if the listeners agree or disagree. The other day I poured out some frozen shrimp onto a cutting board, and they were completely frozen to the point. I don't know if you know, like when something's like really frozen, I literally like licked it, and you can't even taste it. That's how much like ice it has around it, almost. Like it's like a rock hard thing. It's not juicing, it's not oiling or whatever. And Anthony was like, "Ugh, like you put your shrimp on the same thing that I'm going to be like chopping my food on or whatever." Like he really doesn't want, and he also doesn't want my stuff ever stirred with the same spoon as his stuff is stirred with.
Well, not because of you, because you're eating salmon or shrimp or something that I don't eat.
Okay, well then let's use the fake meat example then. So sometimes we'll make meaty pasta. So I'm a vegetarian, so I'll have fake meat in sauce, the exact same sauce as him, and then he'll have real meat in the exact same sauce.
I don't want your bean meat.
And I don't even mind if the real meat is contaminated in mine. Like it doesn't bother me, even though I'm the vegetarian.
I don't want your weird ass bean meat.
He really doesn't like the spoons cannot touch.
So I think you dropped the people into the deep end.
Yes.
Let's give them the staircase.
Yeah, well, we've talked about it in previous episodes.
Talk about how picky I am?
Yes, we've talked about it.
Okay, then fuck me.
No, but the recap.
So the recap version is I'm very picky. My parents loved me very much, but they served me like the same 6 meals for my entire childhood. And so as a kid, I never had anything other than meat, potatoes, like vegetables, like green, but vegetables at my house were only green beans, corn, carrots. Didn't have broccoli until my 20s. Didn't have asparagus until my 20s. Didn't have any of the other more creative and healthier vegetables until my older years. Pasta. We had a pasta night, and then like junk food, like hamburgers or pizzas, etc. And so it wasn't until I moved out that I even found out I was missing out. At like 17, I was like, wait, people have curry nights? What's Taco Tuesday? Like I was like, unaware of these things. I heard about them in movies enough that like I know what tacos are, but I just didn't know every even white families and Italian families have a taco night sometimes. Unaware. And so as an adult, then I had to start over with like vegetables, Mexican food. I fell in love with curry. I found aspects of Chinese food I like.
Yes.
But for example, I hate all sauces.
Yeah.
Cannot do salad dressings. And I need to know what's in the food.
Yes. That's the main thing that I think is a bit of like a compulsion.
Yeah.
Is that, for example, if somebody said, I made this homemade blank.
Like casserole, and it's
just homemade anything. Even if it's something you like, I made from scratch.
What's in it?
I made from scratch.
What's in it?
Yeah, you wouldn't eat it.
No,
I don't think you would eat it.
I would just say what's in it.
Yeah.
But people will be like, I don't want to tell you. It's a secret. You just gotta trust me. It's my mom.
But
my mom taught me how to make it.
also, if they said an ingredient that you didn't recognize, let's say they said there was quinoa and turmeric in this whatever, would you eat it? There's no way in a million. You wouldn't even. Would you take a bite of it?
My favorite food in the world is lasagna. And if someone's like, we have a homemade lasagna. Here's the thing with lasagna, and this is how my brain works: is I go, red flag. Lasagna is the kind of food
that people put weird things in.
So, for example, when someone's like, we're having a barbecue, I'm so relaxed because I go, oh,
it's just meat.
It's really hard to fuck that up in a way I can't eat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But when someone's like, oh, we're having a potluck dinner or it's a lasagna, I go, oh no, it's going to be a problem. And when I go somewhere, I remember I was on tour once and I was really, really, really far from home. And they were like, come over for food. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. But I'm really picky.
Yeah.
And I got there and it was tacos and like tacos I like and it was all the ingredients I like.
You're also still picky with that, though.
I was the happiest
you would
guy
never,
in the world.
even though you like tacos that you can like build yourself, you would never go to a Mexican restaurant and just order a taco thing off the menu.
Now, here's an important thing that I need to share because the listeners are people I really like. Everyone who listens, I care what they think about me.
Yes.
And so even though I'm really picky and my dietary limitations are a problem, I'm not a diva about it. I try to be self-aware and avoid the situations versus showing up and having a tantrum in them. I'm not somebody who comes to something and goes, "What? I can't eat this."
No.
I just don't go, or I come after dinner.
To be honest, I'm probably the one you stress the most about that stuff.
Yeah, of course. Oh, but we eat together. That's just gonna have to be.
But I just mean sometimes if we're going somewhere and you can't eat anything, it'll be like a whole thing, and we have to like either we have to leave or we have to plan something for later or whatever.
Yeah, and
but you don't let it affect your friends and your relationships.
And I never diva about it. It's not like where I'm like, well, you better make something for me. No, it's just
of course not.
You say of course not, but you don't think that there are
people who say you better make something for me.
No, but. Maybe they wouldn't say that. No,
right.
But I mean, other entertainers who are maybe also really selective in their diet.
Right.
Yeah, I think they might be like, if I come to your thing, I expect you're going to make something for me. You know what I mean? And I've never been like that. I always say my biggest thing is I feel rude because I'm like, babe, tell your friends I'm sorry. I'll come for like 9. I'll come after dinner.
Yeah.
And then it's like I have to be that guy all the time who doesn't come for dinner.
Yeah. Sometimes we'll have like dinner and a games night or something, and
come for the games.
I'll go for dinner and games, and then Anthony will just show up later for the games just because he's not sure if it'll work out with his diet.
I feel bad because definitely. You know, I've got friends. I've got a friend named Chris who's basically a chef. And in his life, romance and love and food are all intertwined. You know what I mean? And that's not something I can give you. It just isn't. I like to cook for you. I like to take the workload off of you. And I think of that as being romantic.
Yeah.
For example, lately I've been trying to like fry up shrimp and I take it really seriously and I bought seasoning and I like dicing up tomatoes and I try.
Yeah.
But because I can't go there with you on like experimenting new foods.
Oh, and fortunately I like everything. So our food thing, like the meals that we eat, your 6 meals that you rotate work for me. So it works out. But
if you ever cheat on me, I will know for sure it's a guy who takes you to gourmet
It's like
restaurants.
with like a chef or something.
Yeah, somebody who takes you to gourmet restaurants for sure. It's just like tofu and
like sushi,
fondue, and all kind of words.
A guy who could take me for sushi.
I can't.
I know you never would.
No, I can't.
Never.
You can eat sushi off my naked body.
There's literally this is where specificness comes in place, because you wouldn't even go for sushi and order something weird off the menu. You know what I mean? Like some people they'll go for sushi and they'll just get the chicken teriyaki, but I don't think you'd even like that, right?
I don't even like that.
No, there'd be literally nothing you would eat on that menu.
And I've tried, especially when I was single, occasionally some girls like, let's go for sushi. And I think, she's hot enough to go for sushi.
Apparently I'm not hot enough because we've never gone for sushi.
You are. It's just that I really figured out how much I don't like certain things before I met you.
For sure.
That's all that is.
And also one thing that I try to remember, just to show the other side of that too, I feel like I'm not attacking you, is that why it shouldn't matter to other people what you eat. And I find that sometimes people are so romantic about it that they're like, oh, try my new sauce that I made. And they really want you to try it, and they're offended if you don't. But it's just like, really, what people consume and put into their own bodies, just like vegans or vegetarians or whatever, just think of Anthony like that. It's like he really is specific about what he puts into his body, and he might not want to put that thing.
And I do try to eat well. Like, I know for people listening, they might be thinking like, oh, that sounds pretty like meat heavy. And to be honest, it definitely is.
Yeah.
But I've made a real effort in pushing the chicken side of my diet up and the beef side of my diet down. Like, I've really made an effort of that recently. And it's a lot of vegetables. And my thing is, where I lack diversity, I'm pretty good at cutting out the really bad aspects. We don't fry anything at home. You know what I mean? A lot of families are like...
I do, but you don't.
And I mean, I make things in a frying pan. I'm just talking about like frying food.
Like deep frying, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, yes, but you don't have to buy a deep fryer to do it. It's people who fill like a frying pan with oil and they like cook things in a fry type like method.
Right.
I never. Like, just never. Because
we always bake the thing.
Why do it in the least healthy possible way? And so that's where I lack diversity. We've cut the entire least healthy off the thing. I don't buy cakes. I don't buy any of that thing that, for the most part, most families, I know most health conscious people don't do this, but where I come from, most families have a cake allowance in the house, and like there's like cakes and donuts, and lately you've been bad at getting coffee and bringing me back donuts, but other than that, I generally have been really good at not having like baked goods in the home.
Yeah. Speaking of which, actually, that's a really amazing segue. So I was listening to...
Thank you. I'm known for my segue.
I was listening to your Mom's House podcast the other day, and Tom Segura challenges Bert Kreischer to a donut eating contest. And basically... Tom's wife, sorry, what was his wife?
For people who don't know them, they're two fat comedians.
They're two fat comedians, whose wife and his wife, who's also a comedian.
Her name is Christina Pazynski.
Yes. So basically, he says, Tom says, I think I could eat 20. I think I'm going to start the challenge at 20 Krispy Kremes. And she's like, oh my God, that's sorry, he said 40, I think, didn't he? 40 Krispy Kremes in 12 minutes. That's what he said. And she was like, oh my God, that's so many. So what do you think? How many Krispy Kremes could you eat is the first question.
Fuck Krispy Kreme. I don't even want to play if it's Krispy Kreme.
Really? You don't like them?
I don't like and they even say this on that podcast, it's the most sugary donut, and sugary is my least favorite part of the donut.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean? So I don't want.
So you like the more
donut.
like doughy part of the donut.
I like, the glazed donut, whether it's chocolate glazed or regular. I like a glazed donut. The taste, the texture. I'm in. I could eat a bunch of those.
Interesting.
But Krispy Kreme is known for being like glazed with sugar, and that's the part I couldn't do. And to be honest, that's what Christina Pazynski says to Tom in this debate. She goes, after 3. The sugar would make me want to throw up, and that's when I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Tim Hortons donuts, I think I could do 12 in 12 minutes, but no more than that. I don't think. I think the last 2 would be really hard to get down. If there was a lot of money, like life-changing money on it,
so let's take out the time. So let's take out the time, or at least extend the time. Let's say in like an hour. So let's give it an hour.
No. You ready for the time? I'm gonna give you the time parameters.
Okay.
You have to eat. It's no time limit at all. But as soon as you go 1 minute without eating a full donut, time stops. You know what I mean?
Yes. So there's no time limit at all.
So as long as you keep eating a donut a minute, you can keep going.
So for some reason, to me, Krispy Kremes, I think I could eat way more of than your fluffy donuts. Like he eats like the ones with like the sprinkles on top. I think I could eat more Krispy Kremes, and I think that's just a taste thing. I think I just like them more.
Can we do a poll on our Insta Snaps about this?
What could
you eat?
I feel like we can't steal their
what could you eat more of?
Yeah. So that brings me to my next topic. Like, what is the food that you think you would be the most? So if there's money on the line and they're saying you get to pick the food and how many you could eat the most of, what would be your food that you would pick?
I think hot dogs.
Hot dogs, yeah. Hot dogs is up there for me too.
They're easy to eat. I eat them quickly.
Yeah.
And hot dogs are probably... I just did this whole thing about, listen, I eat pretty healthy. But hot dogs are probably my vice where, like, you might not even know where... It's like late and I have a late snack and I turn the oven on and I kind of barbecue 2 hot dogs on the like grills.
Yeah.
And I make them and
I know.
I make them and eat them in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like,
yep.
And you don't even know. I said, you just smell the oven on for 2 seconds and then they're gone.
I love Anthony because me and him eat. He's actually the only person I've ever met, I think, who eats faster than me. We both eat very fast.
I got shit to do, babe.
Whenever we go to a dinner party, we're always finished our food last.
I'm always rolling a joint at the table.
By the time it's true. By the time everyone else is like talking, everyone else like puts down their fork. Like, who does that?
Listen,
who has time to put it down? My other thing is pizza for sure. I know that's like a cliched one, but I really think
I asked you how much pizza you could eat and I was astonished with your answer.
Yeah. So I really think I could eat, and I know there's some people out there who'll be like, oh, that's not even that much. But I really think
people are going to die.
I really think I could eat a large pizza and a half easily. And then every slice after that would be difficult.
I think at most places we're talking 15 slices of pizza.
Yeah.
A large pizza at Little Caesars was 12 inches across. Was that no, 12 inches was a medium, so 14 inches was a large.
So how long is that?
Like that's like how big the pizza is.
Yeah.
In circumference or diameter?
Circumference?
Let's say circumference even.
Okay.
14 inches in circumference.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's a lot of pizza. And my thing is, the story that I remember is when I was in high school, shortly after I moved out at 16, these are the types of activities I was involved in while I was newly living on my own.
Me too, trust me.
Me and my friend Todd Palmer, was Todd there for this? Well, if he wasn't, I'm going to pretend he was because he would have been there.
Shout out to Todd.
To Todd. But the dare was actually with my friend Michael, a guy named Michael. We were at a McDonald's and we were stoned together. He was younger than me and I taught him all about the glory of marijuana. And he said to me something like, if I could eat 10 or 20 of these in a minute, will you cover the cab home? and will you cover the burgers? And I was like, done, let's do this. And again, I can't remember if it was 10 or 20. And I know that's key information.
And sorry, what place was this?
McDonald's.
McDonald's, okay.
But what I do remember, this is a long time ago. What I do remember is he was murking it. Like, oh shit, for sure. I'm out $40. Like, this is definitely like, he's going to kill this. Mm-hmm. Until the end. And what I noticed is if you drew like a map, like a graph curve, it's like killing it, not what's going on here. And then by the end,
yeah, I think that's how it would go.
By the end, he was just like, he had one burger left, and it's like he's out $40 if he doesn't eat that burger in like the last 30 seconds or 1 minute. And he's just like, I can't do it. I'm like, do it. It's right in front of you.
And how many did you do then?
Like, again, I'm struggling to remember all the details. It was something like, maybe it was 10 in 3 minutes or something. And it's like, seemed easy. And he was fine until it's like at the end, his body was rejecting the food. And I think that's what it's hard to anticipate that moment when your body starts going, man, no more of this.
Nope. Yeah.
You're not putting any more of this in me.
Do you remember like the milk challenge from like Jackass?
I'm lactose intolerant. So that shit is murder.
Do you remember that though?
No.
It was basically on Jackass. I think it was called the milk challenge or the dairy challenge. That's what it was called. And they would essentially drink milk, but milk essentially doesn't digest right away. So it just like fills you until you throw up.
I didn't know.
So they would
you can't drink that much milk, but I didn't know that's
they
why.
they would just drink it until they threw up or whatever. And it was funny or whatever. But anyways, my foods are definitely hot dogs, pizza. I think I could do. And then now that you brought up the McDonald's hamburgers, so were they just like the flat patties, one hamburger? Was there cheese?
I don't. This is literally 20 years ago.
Well, let's say no cheese. So let's just say 2 pickles, ketchup, mustard, onions, whatever the little flat onions are. Hamburgers.
So much detail.
I think I could do 15. I honestly think
15 in a row.
Yeah, and like with your rule where like
when a minute passes.
Yeah, when a minute passes, you have to stop.
Yeah,
I could do a lot of them. I think.
I don't know.
I've always said, I remember early on in me and Anthony's relationship, I said that I felt like McDonald's was more of a snack than a meal. And he was like, well, that's obese person talk.
Yeah. I'm going to be married to a fat person. For sure.
But it really does. Like, to me, it doesn't feel filling. And I mean, eventually you get full, but it's just like, it feels like you just eat it so fast and it's gone. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel like a hearty meal. It just feels like a little snack, you know? I think we should try one of these challenges.
I would love to film you doing the challenge with the timing laid out the way we did. It's just as many as you can in a row until a minute passes without you eating one. And I bet you it's way lower than you think it is.
The pizza one would be a good one to try because the hamburger one, I would really want them to be warm and hot. And I feel like if you just ordered a bunch and brought them home from McDonald's, they'd be cold by the time you got to like the end. And that's not really fair because I wouldn't want to eat cold burgers. You know what I mean? Also, I don't eat meat, so that wouldn't work. We'd have to do pizza.
Yeah, so do pizza.
Yeah. I think I could eat a large pizza and a half. I would bet money on that.
So I have a challenge for you.
Okay.
The challenge is I have to pee.
Okay.
And I don't know what to do about that.
I have to too, actually. So are we going to have a solo Jess session and then
No, here's what we're going to do because I'm having fun. We're coming up on like an hour and 40 minutes, but I'd like to keep going.
Yeah.
So for the first time in this podcast history, why don't we take a pee break because I am drinking right now and I'm starting to get buzzed, but I'm having fun and I want to keep talking and I've got stuff I want to address.
Yeah. Okay.
So why don't we pause for the first time in history? It will require slightly more editing from you. For the people who listen, you don't know this. Jessica is actually the editor of the podcast, of the videos. So whenever there's a mistake, if it's not in sync, she's the person to roast.
Or whenever it's awesome, I'm the person to thank.
Yeah. When the font you can't read, that was Jess's call.
Fuck you.
So pee break. We're going to come back with empty bladders, ready to rock and roll, and close out Act 3 of Episode 7. Stay tuned. And we're back.
We're back from our pee breaks.
Pee breaks.
So just to touch back on our phobias talk, aren't you afraid of heights as well?
Yeah, that's just called common sense.
It is a very common phobia.
I live in a fleshy body. It's not proven to bounce or be bulletproof. So I also have a phobia of guns. I also have a phobia No, I'm being serious. Like I have, like sometimes, for example, I have a real phobia of knives. If I think about a knife stabbing me or even think about it.
Yeah, that's a real thing. Yeah, for sure.
I get obsessed with it for like a little short period of time where I'm like, I got to kind of get it out of my mind, this idea of. And so when I used to work at Little Caesars Pizza and they would be like knives to wash, I would get kind of like anxious knowing I had to wash the knives because I'm like, I'm going to fucking cut my finger off because I'm just very aware that this is this dangerous thing that crosses my path occasionally. You know what I mean?
I'm sorry to say this, but because it's an interesting thing on our podcast, I'm definitely going to say it. Sorry if it bothers you later on. But I had a friend once who was telling me about something and like had to pull over while we were driving. And that something was, he was very similar to you where he had like a phobia of like cutting and knives and whatever. And he was telling me about wrestlers, and a fact that I didn't know is that sometimes to give the blood effect, or this or whatever, they sometimes take a little razor blade and like cut themselves in the forehead so that, so that blood runs down their face. So it's more exciting for the people. And a friend who was into backyard wrestling started talking about that to me, just like casually talking about it. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. He's like, I'm sorry, I have to pull over. And he pulled over and I was like, what's going on? And he was just like, I started thinking about it and I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I get it. I kind of get it because I have it a little bit as well. I don't get it necessarily with that specific thing.
For me too. You know that.
Yeah, you're really bad with gore.
I cover my eyes so often in movie and TV.
Yeah.
Because it's like I cannot see blood. I cannot see gore. If I do, so even like right now I'm thinking about it and it's just like.
You're right?
Yeah.
Should we change the topic?
No, I'm fine. I just mean like I can feel it. Like the minute I start thinking about it, it's like it really messes with me.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting fact about Jess Robert here is that I went to school for... I love blood. I went to school for special effects makeup. So I'm a little bit disenfranchised. Is that the word?
Sure.
Is that the right word?
I don't know.
It doesn't really affect me that much because I understand in movies how it works and how they hired a makeup artist to do this. And even when someone's like shot, I understand that they have the squibs on that are exploding. And, when someone's bleeding from their neck, I know that there's like a tube in there that's pumping out corn syrup.
Yeah.
And I try to tell Anthony that while we're watching a movie, but I know that it's nothing to do with what the movie, because he knows that it's a movie that's being made. It's more so the thought of that actual thing happening that's bothering you, correct?
It's funny because I often joke that I'm a sociopath, and in some ways I sort of feel like that's true. But I also have this incredible empathy where when I'm watching a sad movie, like I cry. And when I watch a horror movie, I jump.
Yeah.
When I watch a gore movie, I'm grabbing my neck the whole time. Sure. I've got this like very physical, I get physical symptoms of empathy when I see a character going through something. Yeah. And so that's why I love rom-coms, because I love to like, let's go through the motions of falling in love. I'm in. That'll make me feel great. Yeah. But I do not like movies. Like, there's a new movie right now with John Krasinski. Is that his name, from The Office?
Right? Oh, the deaf one.
Yeah, him and his real life wife, also an actress, star in this movie.
Yes.
Everyone says it's amazing, but that it's terrifying.
It's the deaf one, right? Where they're
I don't know anything about it.
So yeah, basically, I think they play. I forget what the name of the movie is, but they play a deaf couple, and I think they even have deaf children as well. Maybe they're like a whole deaf family, and then basically stuff starts happening in their house, like horror stuff starts happening in their house, and it's like, And when I see one of those, an interesting perspective on a horror movie.
When I see one of those movies coming out, I go, "Oh, I'm gonna have to watch that," and I just know it's going to really mess with me. And I don't have nightmares. It's not that.
Yeah, me and you are so different in that way.
It's not this like I'm up scared all night. It's that in the moment, I feel a percentage of what they feel. And that's not good. Yeah. If it's a movie where they're afraid for their lives. Yeah. So for a moment, I almost feel like afraid for my life. And it's just like,
I know what you mean. Me and you are kind of the exact opposite with that, because I love horror movies. I love sci-fi. I love all this weird shit. But then when I go to sleep, it's just like those thoughts don't leave. And I have like sleep paralysis. I have nightmares, and you don't have any of that. You fall asleep right away.
Well, that's partly the weed, but also it's partly my rationalization, because human brain is complicated, right? Yeah. Because not everybody's just one thing. It's not just a comparison about how much do you like scary movies. My thing is, I think my problem is I'm too empathetic, that I get too into the movie, but that's not your problem. Alternatively, I'm very rational. So later on, when the movie's off, it's easy for me to rationalize it as just a movie and move on, versus you have a slightly less of that rational mind. Mm-hmm. I don't think you're irrational, but I think you rationalize things less than I do. I know, so it simmers in your brain all night more than it does for me, I think.
One thing I worry about my mental health, to get really real, since we're going to go into this, is that I do know that these things aren't real, and there's a layer of me that's like, I know this thing that I'm stressing about and that I'm scared about at night isn't real. I know there's not about somebody from fucking the movie Get Out is going to run into the room and like grab me or whatever. I know these things aren't real, but there's also a second layer that's feeling the stress of it. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's like, what's going to get me over that? Like, I'm interested to see what the therapy offers, and like what kind of coping mechanisms they offer me to get over that. Because it's not like I think it's real. Like, I don't think it's real.
Can I go here? Yeah. And I think you've said it, and I think it's fucking really interesting. Is I think there is. You come from a somewhat religious background.
Yeah, somewhat
religious background. Well, I mean, I just mean because you're not super religious.
Yeah, but I come from a very religious background.
You come from a very religious background, but you are not necessarily very religious. Yeah. But you are religious, and you certainly have a religious upbringing. And so one thing that you and I have discussed is that you have a lot of experience maybe believing that something isn't 100% true, but giving it emotional merit anyways.
For sure.
Because you don't believe everything in the Bible is true, but you honor them anyways, and you kind of go, you know what I mean? And so I think in a way, when you watch
horror, trained my brain to do the same thing with other things.
Even if you don't believe every aspect of the movie, really are, you will get focused on certain aspects.
I normally wouldn't want to talk about this, but it's buried deep enough in this episode that there's no way anybody's going to be listening to it. So it's
keep it light if you want.
Yeah, no, I'll keep it light. But that I definitely brought that up like in my session today, as like, I feel like it's important to bring up that it's just like, I was raised in an environment where demons and the devil and things like that are taught as real things. Like, they're taught as real. It's not just like a fantasy land. Like these are things that I grew up from a very young age thinking that those are real. And that has to have some kind of effect on you. 100. You know what I mean? Like,
Even if you don't mean entirely negative, it has an effect.
Yeah. And I don't think Christians think that some demon's going to bust out of their closet and attack them. However, it's kind of this thing at the back of your mind as a possibility that this thing is real. You know what I mean?
That's what I mean. That's exactly what I was saying, is that it's this weird thing where it's not real. My family's Catholic, so I'm less religious than you, but my family history is not. You know what I mean? Like my family is not necessarily less religious than yours. My dad is, but his family is incredibly Catholic. You know what I mean? And it's definitely taught that it's a very intense and like negative situation. And I came up from that, and I went the other way. But I come from that same background of experiencing that like really intense Catholicism. You know what I mean?
I remember, we're going to get really into it right now. I remember like one specific thing, like demon related, that stands out to me that I remember my mom saying to me at a really young age was that I was talking about like Ouija boards and stuff like that. You know, like that's like that's kind of like, and it's interesting. You actually read about it. It's kind of a craze that a lot of young girls get into. Guys don't really get into it as much. Girls between the age of like 12 to 14 have this weird like spiritual like.
Also like Wiccan.
Yeah.
Guys do it, but way less than girls.
I would be interested to read more about it. Maybe I'll read more about it and then bring it up next podcast, because it's really interesting that girls have this like spiritual, like mythical, like kind of phase in their lives, and almost all girls can remember experiencing a time in their life that it was like
there were girls at my school who were super into that stuff.
Yeah, totally. And I was for sure as well.
Of course.
And I remember asking my mom about like Ouija boards and like what she thought about them, and she said that I think they work. I don't think they'll work on you because God is protecting you.
Interesting.
And in my older years, as I'm kind of like, you know, questioning my faith and like having doubts and stuff like this, I definitely have this weird thing that like, is God still protecting me? Do you know what I mean? Like I have this like weird thought where it's just like, if I'm having doubts in God, is God having doubts in me, and then like not protecting me from all these like evil entities? Like, I know it's like a super deep thought, and it's not
No, I like it. And that's actually what I was going to say earlier, and I kind of got sidetracked. I lost it but there's this weird thing that happens in Christianity where you mean it and you don't. Like your mom means it, and simultaneously she doesn't mean it.
Yeah. No, I agree.
You know what I mean?
I completely agree. Yeah.
It's hard for a kid to understand that.
Yeah.
That's like, oh, so God's looking out for me? Well, not looking out for you. I mean, but he's watching over me. Yeah. Is he watching over me? I mean, well, he's not watching over you. It's like,
right.
You know, it's like this weird thing where it's allegory, but some people believe it's fact.
Yeah.
And some people believe it's somewhere in the middle. And it's like this, it's very difficult for a kid to understand, you know, how is this fact? How do I absorb this into my interpretation of reality? Even as an adult, I struggle. I mean, now I think I've settled on.
And on the flip side of that, I've said this to you before, when people are completely either non-religious or non-spiritual, I always wonder like, oh, like, so what do you talk to when you're like hoping for something? Do you know what I mean? Like, I definitely still pray. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I still like think like, let's say like you were in danger or something. I'd be like, oh my gosh, like, please God, hope that Anthony's okay.
But
like, you know what I mean?
I don't think you're talking to anybody.
I would disagree, and that's my own personal. That's my own personal thing. And I know that a lot of people do it ritualistically, where they're like, please don't let this thing happen. Whoever's in the sky. But I feel like I have a more personal relationship with what I believe.
Interesting.
Do
you believe something is listening?
Yeah.
Okay,
and I mean,
that's a big difference.
I'm not going to argue.
No, you don't have to.
And I'm also not going to argue that fact with anybody.
I'd
like,
rather
if
you
they
not.
don't believe it.
No,
Yeah, I
that's
know,
not how
totally.
faith works.
Yeah, like.
No, I know. It's more, and I think that's the reason I asked that exact question is I think that's the difference.
Yeah.
Some people say like they pray, but it's more ritualistic because they want something, or they want to have a moment where they address what it is that they do want.
Yeah.
And if you think somebody's listening, I think that's the difference.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think
totally.
That, like prayer and sort of like ritualistic prayer, I pray because that's how you do this thing.
Yeah.
Versus if you think somebody's listening, I think you're doing it. You're really praying. And you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
The fact that you actually feel like you have a relationship with something, I think, is the difference between like I think I know people who pray, but I don't think they're thinking about anybody listening.
Yeah,
they just want to. It's almost like it's for some people. I think it is like a meditative moment.
Yeah,
where it's almost like a vision board where you write down what you want and so it's possible to get those things. Prayer is like the original vision board. You've told the universe what you want.
Yeah.
You've had a moment where you were serious with yourself. This is what you want. And I think a lot of people, whether they acknowledge it or not, they do it that way.
Yeah.
And so, but I think other people for sure do have a convo with somebody.
One thing that I'm very conscious about, especially when we talk about my, fear of being alone and all that things, is it is something that I need. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
So I could even say, like, if you want to argue that, well, you need that, that's the only reason why you believe it, it's not actually real. Sure, maybe, because I do feel like I need it. You know what I mean? Like, I do need that in my life. So if you don't need it, you know what I mean? Then don't do it. But it's just like that is something that I feel like is like important to me, and that
Interesting.
That is what's one of my like coping mechanisms to deal with like the craziness that life brings. You know what I mean?
I think it's one of the key differences between us is, for me, I have an obsession with truth and fact. If something is not a fact, I struggle with it. I'm like very like Ricky Gervais in that way, where I'm like, I have to point out when something is or isn't a fact.
Yeah.
But even you are sort of like, it may not be a fact, and that's okay. And I don't have that. I would struggle settling on that.
Yeah.
But by the way, the world is full of billions of people who feel that way. Like all of Europe is still pretty religious, but where Europe is right now is very going through the motions religious.
Yeah.
Because they're also very forward, like especially like Switzerland, Italy, France. These are the places leading in the dropping of Christianity.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Europe is where there are so much religious history. And so I think there's a lot of people in that, it's like postmodern religion, where it's like, hey, yeah, my entire family history was Catholic. And so we believe in these things.
Totally.
But we no longer believe in a second coming of Christ and these other things that are tougher to rationalize in 2018.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The one thing that's different between me and my family is that I'm so open to all religions, because one thing that is fact is you're born and you die. That is fact. And whatever in between makes you the happiest and makes you feel the most content and makes you feel the most fulfilled and makes you feel, you know what I mean? Like it's all worth it. In the middle, I think that that's up to you, and you know what I mean? And that's super important. You know what I mean? Like that's all we have is feeling like we did a good job. You know what I mean? Like
religion's kind of like the operating system that you choose. Some people don't choose. Some people are born into.
Yeah.
But for you, I think you've chosen how much of that.
Yeah, chosen / been.
You were born into, but I think you don't seem like somebody who just does it on autopilot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like an operating system that you choose to work with. And I personally choose to work with the agnostic system, because I actually believe in the possibility of a creator. I believe in the possibility of we don't know what comes before the Big Bang and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And anybody who is into that stuff already kind of knows what I mean.
Yeah.
But I'm also not firm, like there's no fucking possible way that there was ever an intelligent being that created. I can't say that, you know what I mean? And so I kind of live in that universe.
And to be honest, that's kind of important to me.
Yeah.
I think we talked about this early on in our relationship, and I know that our beliefs are very different, but it's important to me that you're just not closed off to anything that's like, oh, well, it's definitely not this. You know what I mean? Like you really don't know.
I'm closed off to certain things.
Yeah. No, I know you are.
There is no hell. There is no devil with horns living under a ground with fire. Like, I am 100% closed off to that.
Yeah.
There's not even like, we can't even get 0.1% scientifically to what any of that means or could be. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean there's not a creator. That's a very different conversation.
Yeah. No, I agree.
It doesn't mean there's nothing to life energy in a spiritual way at all.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean those things at all. I don't believe there's angels.
Yeah.
Flying around with wings. So there are things I am closed off to, you know what I mean? But I'm not closed off to what I would call the core DNA in, God-based spirituality. I'm not closed off to that key thing. Could there be a creator that you have a conversation with? Yeah, there could be.
Yeah.
That's where I live.
Cool.
It is cool.
It is cool.
Hey, by the way, I love sometimes when you're like, well, we were dark today, or you're like, damn, later you're definitely.
I find that when me and you, when we do our solo podcasts, we get way more dark. So if you're listening right now and you hate this, listen to the ones with the guests, and we get way less dark.
But also, can I say something?
Yeah.
If you listen to that and you hate this, this might not be the podcast.
That's true.
Because honestly,
That's true.
for realsies, this is what I want to do. Is I want to get to these places where I have a bunch of stuff written down on here that I wanted to talk about. Mitzi Shore died from the store. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
There's lots of things I wanted to talk about. There was a terrorist attack, not a terrorist attack. It sounds like a mentally unstable person attack today in Toronto. Lots of things I wanted to touch on. Mm-hmm. But I really think this podcast shines when we get to a place where we're lost in a conversation talking about real things.
Yeah.
And I love when you share, because I'm super down to. I said this I was on Sirius XM with Allison Dorr. I have a meeting with her tomorrow, and we were talking about this podcast, and she's like, "Is your podcast as transparent as your social media is?" And I'm like, "My social media is very transparent."
Yeah. I'm
like, "My podcast has my fiance on it, and so I'm transparent." And I've been excited with. She's been willing to meet me there, and like really, you've been, especially like the last episode where we talked about early in our relationship and stuff.
Yeah,
like, I'm really enjoying that aspect, and so
yeah, for sure.
Today I enjoyed that too.
And especially like we listen to a lot of podcasts /watch if they're on YouTube, and our favorite parts in them all the time are the parts where it gets like really real, and we learn something about that person where we're like, oh, isn't that crazy that they said blah blah blah? I feel like that too, or maybe I don't feel like that, and it's like weird that they feel like that. You know what I mean? Like whatever it is, the real shit is always the best part.
There is no TV show on network television. All the Viacom owned networks. There's no Clear Channel radio station where a soon to be married couple that is 50% Christian from a heavily Christian background and 50% borderline atheist talks about how they reconcile that. That is not a conversation you see or hear on network television or on broadcast radio. You can find those types of conversations in podcasts. We're not breaking complete new ground. All I'm saying is, I remember the first time I heard those types of nuanced conversations in a podcast, and my mind was blown. Like, I remember being exposed to that, because there's the way that reality TV teaches you tons about the human condition, because you're like, there are so many things a person does when they forget they're being filmed that an actor can't do. There's so many things that we would bring up in a conversation like that you simply cannot plan in we're going to talk about spirituality on today's episode. Yeah. You just really need to let go and talk about it and tell me, this is where the line is for me, and this is why, and I'm even willing to say, and I think that's, to me, is where the interesting shit happens.
Yeah,
you know
totally.
What I mean? I
agree.
fucking love it. In saying that, I touched on it, so let's say it. Rest in peace, Mitzi Shore. That's crazy.
Yeah, so crazy.
What do you know about Mitzi Shore?
So I know that she's Pauly Shore's mom, and that she owned the Comedy Store in Hollywood for what, like 40 years? How many years?
I think from the 70s through till now. She's dead, so that's 40 years.
Yeah. So I guess pretty well.
Yeah, good job.
No, super sad.
So she was sick and had dementia and some other things for a long time.
I'm gonna check how old she was. I'm just curious.
Yeah, for sure. Pauly Shore's mom. Everybody in our generation knows Pauly Shore quite
87.
well. He's 87 years old. As Kevin Smith says, that's a big bucket of win. She lived a long time. She did all the good things. And what's been really interesting and cool to see is all the stand-up comics that kind of had their start at the store. They've all been kind of hitting the internet one by one, telling their stories. She's probably the single most influential woman in all of stand-up comedy, and one of the most influential people in the history of stand-up comedy, even though she never really wrote a joke ever. You know what I mean? What's interesting is do you know how she got the Comedy Store? Mm-mm. She got it in she was married to a man who opened it, and then they divorced, and then she said, in the divorce, she's like, I want the store.
That's funny. Was it already like poppin'?
I don't know. I am a fan and I know the stories, but I don't know it like deep. But I always thought it was interesting that she like kind of came into it and then took it really seriously for like her entire life. So I don't say that lightly.
Yeah.
Just so many. I've heard so many comics from Bobby Lee to Dane Cook to Joe Rogan talk about like being 21 years old, 25 years old, and her being like, it's time. It's about to be your era. And then it's like, these are my favorite comics in the world. So she passed away, and I only wanted to talk about it because I'm largely unaffected by celebrity deaths. I figure, I realized a couple of years ago, mathematically speaking alone, we're about to enter a giant wave of celebrity deaths because TV's now been on for 50 years, 60 years or whatever. These people are going to start fucking passing away.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been passing, but more of them, you know? And so I try not to get flattened every time somebody I liked in a movie passes.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? But occasionally you like to reserve a little bit of mourning for the ones who actually affect you as a creative content creator and podcaster, and she's definitely on that list, you know. So
what other celebrity death would you say kind of hit you really hard recently?
like recently?
Yeah, recently as in like the past like 5-6 years.
I don't know.
To me, and there was some personal reasons to why it did, but Philip Seymour Hoffman did a lot because I really loved him as an actor. And I also had a boyfriend at the time. I don't know if it was I think we were together at the time, who was addicted to drugs as well. So it was just like, it felt like very like real. And it was just like, I know that the first time, what was it like? The first time you do heroin or whatever, you can die essentially. And I think it was his first, I heard that it was his first time doing it in a long time. So like he was clean for a while and then he kind of relapsed and it was like his first time doing it in a while and he just died. So that just was very real to me. And he was one of my favorite actors. Like, I remember specifically, I know Patch Adams is a...
I loved Patch Adams.
Yeah, Patch Adams is a great movie. Like, it's like the corny, you know what I mean? Like, feel good,
corny,
make you
great.
cry movie. But I remember Philip Seymour Hoffman and Patch Adams giving it was like a monologue that I feel like if I wanted to go into acting, I might even do that monologue like as an audition. And it's about him talking about how the work he was doing was serious business and how Robin Williams was just making a joke out of us. Or a joke out of the medical industry. Do you remember this monologue?
No.
Where he's just like, this is serious business. Anyways, it's just like, I remember like just being like so like wow, like Philip Seymour Hoffman is fucking amazing. I almost should like post that on my Instagram.
I didn't have an answer until you said a name right there. Robin Williams was tough.
Yeah.
For me,
oh yeah, both from that movie are gone
there's
now.
2 reasons why Robin Williams. Oh, I'm probably the most buzzed I've ever been on this podcast, except for the time I had the edible, because that time really fucked me up too. There's 2 reasons why Robin Williams affects me. One is he's one of the celebrities as a kid I remember first. I remember how much I liked him, how relatable he was.
Aladdin.
I loved everything he did in my childhood, you know? Secondly, on my worst days, at my most manic, I fear I come off like Robin Williams. I don't think I'm as manic as he gets. But at my worst, sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm being like that.
I could do a great impression of a hot dog.
Yeah, I'm just like I'm all over the place. I'm talking about 25 things at once. No, but you know what I mean, where I'm like talking fast and days where you're like, you're being really manic today.
Yeah.
And so when I realized that I'm the furthest thing from suicidal, I'm the furthest thing from like life's too precious to me. But I realized that somewhere in this world, people with some of my same conditions, but more extreme, it gets dark. And I was just like, that felt so real to me because I'm not like this bulletproof guy who doesn't relate at all. I sort of relate to being, I don't call myself a genius, but definitely like a creative, like lifer. I've been creating and writing scripts and raps and tours and screenplays and comedy ideas since as far back as I can remember. And he's one of those guys, you know what I mean? And then at one point he was just like, no more, I can't do it. And it's like, wow, I sort of didn't know it could get that dark if you're kind of like me. Because to me, Kurt Cobain, all his music is dark, so I wasn't surprised.
Yeah.
Or like that's sad, but you know what I mean? Like when someone's kind of like a sad artist, you go, oh, they were sad. I sort of knew that. Robin Williams is reminded me of me in ways where he's making jokes all the time, but meanwhile
he also I feel like I knew that he was sad. Like he definitely had his sad side. I just feel like from the even like the roles that he played and stuff, he was so good at playing heartbreak and playing death and
but
playing
to walk away from
what's that?
All. That's
by the way.
Dark.
What is the amazing movie that I hadn't seen and you showed me? What Dreams May Come?
Oh, that's a great movie.
So I had never seen that movie. For everyone out there must be like, you hadn't seen that movie. I hadn't seen it until me and Anthony started dating, and then he showed it to me, and it fucked me up a little bit because it's kind of a fucked up movie.
That's how I used to get the girls.
Yeah, no, it's not.
That's why.
First of
what
all,
dreams
the
may
least
come twice.
No, the least sexy movie ever.
What dreams may come twice.
I heard it the first time.
I had to say it twice.
But yeah, like that movie was messed up, and like it just shows like Robin Williams' more like sad, like depressing side. He definitely had Patch Adams is like that too. What other movie? There's so many movies where he's like crying in the movie. You know what I mean?
Foreshadow.
No, I know, but for some reason, I always felt like I kind of knew that he was like also like a layered kind of sad person.
I think I did too, but I don't know. It made it so real that like, you know, I mean, I'm not breaking new ground here about suicide, but just like walk away from it all forever. That's how bad it is.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, he's bringing joy to us, and he wants to walk away from it all forever. Yeah. Like that was, even as I'm saying it, I can't reconcile that with the guy that I was a fan of. I cannot reconcile those two things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The permanence of the suicide. Am I right? Did Robin Williams kill himself?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm making sure because I sometimes I mix these details up.
No, that's okay. Yeah. No, yeah, he did.
But the permanence of it, I get depression. There are artists that we know who I respect deeply who talk about their depression, so I see how it's very real in their lives, and but I sort of maybe naively feel like none of them are thinking about walking away from it all forever. You know what I mean? And in Robin Williams' case, I was caught off guard by that. To
be honest, too, that's kind of another one of my anxieties recently is we have artists that we know and friends we know who are pretty open about these things. And I feel a little bit of like a responsibility with it where it's just like, is this person really that sad? And if they are, should I be paying more attention to it? Should I be calling them more often to make sure everything's okay?
What do you do,
you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's like, what do you do? It is kind of like a helpless feeling, right?
I definitely feel like even in cases where I try to give advice, a lot of the time, even politely, they say like, I'm not looking for any advice, you know, so it's like, okay, well, I'm here for you then, you know?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And even with my anxiety, I feel that way too. People are like, try to think about something else. And it's just like, okay, well, you don't really understand how it works. So thank you.
I think the reality is if your brain doesn't do that thing, if you're not broken in that way, it's hard to relate to. I've talked with you so much about, I understand depression. I'm not a depression denier. You know, I understand how it works and why and how. But I understand from a distance.
Yeah.
It's like a movie I watched once. I do not understand from like an experience.
And I think there's a difference between understanding and being understanding. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that you're very understanding because you understand that these things exist and that even though you don't have
it's an abstract concept.
Yeah. You can't wrap your brain around it.
I've never even dipped my toe into that pool to be like, because there's other things I've dipped my toe into the pool of. You know what I mean? Like I have had low confidence issues in my life. So people who have that like...
And you have anxiety sometimes.
Paralyzing low confidence I can relate to, you know? I have social anxieties. One time my mentor Dio said, go get me a business card, come back. And he said, give me 20 minutes. And I was in a room with 1 billion business cards. And just tell the people how many business cards I came back with?
Zero business cards.
Because the minute he said, go get a card, my social anxiety kicked in and I couldn't do it. But in saying that, I have the deepest networking skills of anybody I know, as long as I avoid all my little social anxieties. So I definitely have my own things. Depression just isn't on that list, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And so it's easy for people to forget that, that classic meme that's like really super overdone at this point. Where just like, whenever you like meet somebody, you don't know like the battles they just been through. It is super corny, but I remember the first time I saw it, I did sort of think like, it is true that when I'm out in the street and a guy gives me a dirty look, I never think that dude's wife just cheated on him. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I never think it's his birthday and his kids didn't call.
Yeah.
You just don't, your brain doesn't go to those. And so I try to once in a while, sometimes jokingly in a very specific manner like that, or other times just be like, man, I don't know. Maybe their arthritis is fucking killing them right now.
Yeah.
So your bullshit was just too much for them.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
You know? And realistically, I come with a lot of bullshit. So I just try to be aware of that, you know? That's all I'm saying.
True. Dark episode.
Not dark. Why are you always saying it's dark?
We just
the
got...
sun'll come out tomorrow. Bet your bottom dollar that tomorrow. How come nobody bets their top dollar?
Our dog's getting really excited. She likes when Anthony sings.
Everybody likes when I sing.
Literally, my only other notes were car crashing and killing a bunch of people today, and 8th victim found from serial killer. So it's not about to get any sunnier up in here.
Times are dark here in Toronto.
Yeah.
We've been freestyling and killing it. Let me see if there's anything I wanted to talk about before we moved is on. Oh, you know what I wanted to talk about before that we never touched on? And I think if we don't talk about it right now, we'll never. And for people who are involved or following my story at all, there is a relative interest level here, I would think. So we just threw a show at a venue in Toronto, the Smiling Buddha.
Yeah.
And we had really contemplated on 2 episodes bringing this up before the show.
Oh, we're getting into it.
Yeah, I just figured like it's because this is my only chance to comment on it.
Yeah.
And I had to be very careful what I did and didn't say for 100,000 reasons. And I think like this is our platform, and anybody who listens to it might be curious, you know? So,
yeah.
This is the situation. In January, as we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, started putting together a new band. And what I said to the band was, in an ideal world, I'd love to play a show with you guys when my album comes out in April. Debut the new music with the band, take everything up a notch. They say they're down. I reach out to my good friends at the Smiling Buddha, who hosted my last album release party in 2017. Sold out show, amazing sound. The bar staff was cool. The management was cool.
Great location.
So we're back. We're back to do it again for Antigravity party at the Smiling Buddha. About what? I don't even know the right timeline. A month ago, probably 3 to 4 weeks before the album release party, I start to hear murmurs that there's accusations that one of the, I think 2 or 3 owners of the bar has sexually assaulted a patron at the venue. And the first time I hear murmurs, I'm not certain how serious it is. It's the first time this has ever happened. I play a lot of shows around the world. It's the first time I've ever heard murmurs that somebody affiliated with the show has done something. And so I don't even know how serious to take it at first. I don't know, is it going to resolve itself or not? And the murmurs get louder. And all of a sudden, then the Toronto Star writes a story about it. Everybody I know is talking about it. And so I begin to reach out to other venues. Mm-hmm. I reach out to everyone at the Rivoli. I reach out to people I know at the Painted Lady. I reach out to all the venues that I know. And unfortunately, because of the month and what it means in the Toronto calendar, it's a busy springtime time of year, everything's booked. So most of the bands booked at the Smiling Buddha jump ship. They moved to other venues. I was not able to do so. So what we did was we decided to give all the proceeds to a charity. Whatever profits we made from the show, we're going to give to a charity.
I think it's also important to state that the venue released a statement saying that the accused,
yes.
not even the convicted, but the accused had stepped down.
All important notes. A, he denied the charges and said that it would be the legal system would sort it out. B, he stepped down.
Yeah.
Although still part owner of the venue, which was a complication that I sort of struggled with.
Yeah, for sure.
And C, that I thought was pretty important. They gave me 2 new contacts for the venue. Both were women.
Yeah.
And so it felt a little bit like, not like they say it's okay, so it's okay, but more like if I'm dealing with women and the women involved in the show and around me are expressing a level of comfort, and if we're going to give any possible profits to a women's charity, then I feel like we've got enough pushing us in a positive direction.
Yeah.
To continue with the plans to do the show.
It's still unfortunate, but I think that it was the right decision.
Yeah. So we did the show.
Yeah.
And yeah, so if anybody curious, we didn't really ever make like a big statement about it or anything. But of course, we're super anti-violence. We're super pro-women. It's really important for women in any place, but certainly, our place is Toronto. But so people in Toronto to be able to go out and feel safe and not feel like the people who own the venue that they're partying in are going to take advantage of intoxicated women there. If that's even what happened, I don't know much about it. But yeah, of course, we are with the women in this case, and we are with the victims in any case. It was a difficult situation.
So the charity that we donated the money to, they said they didn't want to be named, correct?
No, they said, well, that's a great point or interesting topic. I contacted a charity, and they said because of the amount of media attention that the venue's getting right now that's so negative, it wasn't a positive look for them to partner up with us.
That's fair.
For the thing. I get it. And so what I did from that point was I just announced a local women's charity. I'm not trying to make anybody sign off on the venue. You know, that's not my purpose here to give the venue any cred. Now, the charity that we donated the money to is sistering.org. If I'm being honest, it wasn't a ton of money. The venue rental and sound man and these things add up. But all of the money that was left over, we donated to sistering.org. They sent me a thank you email today. It's my pleasure. I don't throw these shows for profit. I mean, you know this. The guest list is a mile long. We try to make it about having a vibe. I want people to be dancing. I want it to be fun. And that's what we had. I mean, we already covered the event itself earlier, but it was a really positive night. And the only little negative shadow that we had, I really felt like we did the best thing we could to make it a positive. And we put a little bit of money in the right direction. And we let people know through the social media, that it was important to us to support women. And I think that in itself, it turns a negative into somewhat of a positive, and that you've got so many musicians saying like, hey, it's important to me to support women. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, sure, the conversation was brought up for a shitty reason because of something that may or may not have happened with this particular man and a woman. But you look at me and 100 other these Toronto bands saying, hey, it's important to me to talk about this and to not be part of the problem. And do what I can to be positive. And some of them changed venues. We decided to raise money for charity. But you definitely felt like in Toronto, it's a priority. It's a priority in the music business
for sure.
For these to be safe spaces and to be a good vibe. And we're really about that. I mean, like...
And it was unfortunately just really bad timing.
It was shitty, of course,
In the future, obviously, we'll...
it's never been a problem. And
it's never been a problem.
And it won't be in the future.
It was a strange, weird, bad timing thing, but we made the most of it. And I think we made like a positive
I just think that
decision.
This podcast is a fun place for us to talk about that stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? Like if, let's say tomorrow some other really good or really bad thing happens in the music business. Some people who are listening might be interested to hear, you know, a little POV, a little BTS abbreviation styles about what that is in terms of like, hey, if tomorrow I sign a big record deal or lose one, maybe we'll discuss it. In this particular case, it was the Me Too movement kind of landed into our laps, and then it was on Twitter, and then suddenly talking about somebody I was working with, and it just was a very real. I remember bringing it to you, being like, Jess, what do I do? Mm-hmm. This has never come up before. Mm-hmm. And it's not like I know the guy. He's a guy who owns a venue I book shows at, and we book shows all over the world. My next one's in Amsterdam, and of course France and Czech Republic, and on from there. And I don't know what any of those venue owners are doing.
Yeah,
so it's such a weird thing. You're partnering with all these like men and women all over the world.
And I think in this new era, we're all still learning, you know what I mean? So it's like we're learning the best way to navigate through these problems and the best way to, do you know what I'm saying? Like
totally
the best way to make sense of it for everyone.
And if you're somebody who puts yourself out there a lot, as I happen to, just because of the nature of what I do, you know, I partner with artists, promoters all the time. It cannot mean that I co-sign all of their behaviors.
Yeah. No, you know? Of course not.
And when things come up, I just need to be like genuine.
You opened for Chris Brown.
And I promoted a lot. Yes, you're right. No, you're right about that.
But you know what I mean? When an opportunity comes up, I mean, it's detrimental to your career to be like, yeah, I don't know.
No, it's weird, eh?
It's a hard thing to talk about.
And I think
it's a hard thing to talk about.
I think people just need to know that, like, I'm always trying to be part of the solution, and never part of the problem. And I try to be very aware of what I say, the implications of what I say. You know, I'm very aware that we haven't had a person of color on our podcast yet. Like, I try to be aware of these things,
absolutely,
and conscientious through my life. And so. That's how you be like a world-class human. That's how you be like a conscientious citizen. And we're not perfect. We do the best we can.
You think about the things, you consider them, and you try to
adjust
to make positive steps in the right direction. And sometimes, you know, you stumble, and you just have to keep stepping in the right direction.
Sometimes you open for Chris Brown, and I'm sorry.
Sometimes you open for Chris Brown.
I'm sorry. He was a little sketchy and a little unimpressive, if I'm being honest. So. Shots fired at Chris Brown.
Yeah.
That's it for me. I think shots fired at Chris Brown is good for me. Do you have anything else you want to throw in here?
No, I think
we covered the gambit today.
We really did. We went in.
How do we normally close down? This is your department.
So you can follow us on Damaged Goods Pod on Twitter and Instagram. That's at Damaged Goods Pod on Twitter and Instagram. On Facebook, you can search Damaged Goods Podcast and we should come up. Thank you to lyricvids.com as always. You can find Ill Vibe at Ill Vibe on Instagram, and you can find me at 4 Jess Robert, the number 4 Jess Robert on Instagram.
Can I throw a call to action in as well?
Of course.
It only takes a few people. So if you're one of the listeners who uses the iTunes or podcast app in like the Apple universe, one of the things you can do is you can like rate the podcast. I think it's like a 5-star scenario, in which case I expect no less than 5 stars. I don't want any bullshit 3 and 4-star ratings. I think you can review as well. All I'm saying is if you are a person who uses that app.
And if you made it this far into the episode.
And you're the kind of person even to be here at this point in the episode, do me a favor, do us a favor, do yourself a favor. Give us a little rating. That way when someone else searches us, it doesn't say, oh, there is no data. It's like, oh, somebody said this was 5 stars. And it helps a little bit. So we love you and appreciate you.
Also, you can email us anytime at damagedgoodspod@gmail.com. Is that correct? Or is it podcast?
DamageGoodsPod everywhere.
Yes. So damagedgoodspod@gmail.com. I would love to hear what you guys think about this really serious episode. Tell me about your mental health issues. Tell me about your religious family.
Do you believe in God?
Do you believe in God? Yeah, email us. We'd love to hear from you. And until next time, we're going to go cuddle with our pooch now.
Peace out, motherfuckers.
Bye.